Their plunge into the labyrinth hits a total tipping point, because right now, the party has landed on the 98th floor, panting hard as rain lashes down. Red-haired Meili fights to snag a breath, while the battlefield rages all around her. She stares up in sheer terror as Wim Strauss towers above the waterlogged battlefield, standing on a gigantic armored beast that looms over everything. A storm rages as a chilling, sinister laugh bounces through the air, and a shadowy figure keeps watch, grinning like they're enjoying every second. The story jumps back a few months to when the party pushed through stone-carved corridors inside the labyrinth, hunting answers with every step. Wim trembles with his dagger up, warning that if you chase greed instead of backing off the floor boss, death is coming, no questions asked. The once proud dragon's wings are left shattered and bloodied. Crawling across the cold stone floor after that brutal, devastating encounter, shock slams into Wim as he gapes at the carnage, fighting to comprehend the nightmare exploding right before his eyes. With nothing left but a desperate sliver of hope, he begs that his comrades are still breathing, even after injuries that look absolutely unbearable. A thunderous crash erupts as a massive creature slams into the scene, right behind the stunned adventurer. A colossal reptile beast, all jagged scales and rows of razor teeth, looms over the lone survivor like a nightmare given legs. The beast rumbled out a deep guttural growl, and that predatory eye snapped onto its next target. Locked in a stare with the nightmare, Wim finally gets it. This floor boss is packing a power so overwhelming it hits like a punch. With one thunderous blow, the monster slams the whole party aside, sending them flying like ragdolls. Panicked and drenched in sweat, Wim realizes one single strike has knocked everyone out cold, and he scrambles desperately for any way to escape. He calculates the impossible odds of either buying time for a rescue or dragging 3 unconscious allies to safety. And in the end, he realizes both choices are basically suicide. With fear clawing at his chest, Wim steels himself, realizes there's only one last desperate move, and braces to go straight at the monster. Spitting the words of his secret technique, he lunges toward the moment he'll flip his one-of-a-kind switch, Puppinspieler unleashing the puppeteer power that controls everything. For one gut-wrenching second, a cowardly thought flashes slip away by himself and leave the others behind. Then it hits him fast. He remembers how Dragon's Wings welcomed him in, and how those priceless bonds grew strong through countless days together. In the darkest shadows, a cruel presence keeps laughing at the chaos as it unfolds, wearing a twisted sneer like a grin. As the beast rips the sky open with a thunderous roar, Wim surges with pride because he chose to stand and fight at the defining moment of his life. The memory slips away into the soft hush of the Dragon's Wings party house, the very place where the crew once huddled together, safe. Right now, a nervous Wim stands in their home before his teammates, and he can feel the strange, heavy tension crushing the air. Confusion crashes over them as the Wim stammers stare in disbelief, unable to make sense of the sudden, bone-chilling shift in their friend's behavior. His heart drops the moment a sudden, sharp move snaps into view, catching him completely unaware. His jaw drops. His own leader slams a heavy blade straight toward his throat, icy eyes locked on him like a death sentence. Kronos, the leader of Dragon's Wings, sneers from above and orders Wim to get lost like the filthy scum he claims he is. Mage, males, and priest Enkur refuse to lift a finger. Then they sneer, acting like it's painfully obvious he no longer has a place in their elite party. They sneer at how he tried to play hero, brushing off his final blow on the boss as nothing but dumb luck. Kronos sneered at Wim, shut down his work, and bragged that only his magic blade plus Meili's magic blade were the real powers that trapped the boss. Cold betrayal hit Wim's stammers so hard he couldn't believe it. He'd been convinced their victory was something they'd shared as one tight team. A brutal memory crashes back as Wim drops to his knees, drained from the fight, staring at the fallen beast still clinging to one naive hope that his comrades will finally lift him up with praise. The party whips around and hurls venomous accusations at him, claiming his support buffs weren't enough and that his choices are what directly got them crushed by the creature. Harsh accusations slammed into the young man as his former friends, ice cold, insisted that every single failure inside the labyrinth was his alone. A dark realization slams into Wim as he finally realizes his teammates have hated him since day one of their journey. Wim's face twists in silent agony as the sheer weight of their total rejection crushes his spirit. Terrified that he might lose his life, Win blurts out desperate apologies for every mistake he can think of, even though he's completely lost. He begs them to let him stay, because as a lowly grantor, he knows no other guild would ever hire him for an expedition. Sweat poured down his face as he practically begged to stay the one spot where he'd finally felt like he belonged. Kronos just freezes in icy indifference, then drops a ruthless game meant to crush fate's whims once and for all. The leader yanks out his blade and lays down a cruel, laughably impossible challenge. Wim has to beat him in a fight just to win the right to stay in the party. Win knows it in his bones, someone like him, a total non-combatant, has absolutely no shot against a seasoned warrior like Kronos. A wild, hysterical laugh bursts out of him as he realizes he'll need a miracle bigger than anything just to make it through this encounter. Enraged by Wim's answer, Kronos snaps, demanding to know what on earth he could possibly find funny in a situation this dire. Before Wim can even blink, Kronos shoots in and smashes him with a violent grip, yanking him up by the throat and leaving him dangling in mid-air. The leader hurls vicious insults at his old comrade, calling him a worthless scumbag who's only good for beginner-level support buffs. Kronos roars that even a lowlife like Wim has no right to defy the party leader's absolute command. Wim gasps for breath as the physical abuse keeps pounding down, his desperate pleas echoing into silence. Kronos slams down with a thunderous roar, pummels the defenseless grantor, hurls him aside like he's nothing, and spits that he's a weakling. Kronos clenches his fist, rage burning hot. He just can't stand the idea that someone this pathetic could ever get credit for a boss kill. Wim crumples to the floor, coughing like it's ripping his chest apart, and bitterness floods him. He really risked his life for people who look at him with nothing but disgust. His hand jitters on the floorboards as he remembers the one promise burning in him. He wanted to repay the dragon's wings for taking him in back when he was just some odd job worker. Tears of betrayal finally burst out when the brutal truth of being left behind crashes straight into his shattered heart. A dark silence crashes over the room, and then, bam, mysterious high-heeled boots step into the doorway like something from a nightmare. Wim jerks his gaze up from the floor, vision smeared with blood and tears, desperately trying to make sense of the newcomer. Through gut-wrenching pain, he rasps out a weak question: who is the person standing over his broken body? Kronos steps in, calls the woman Sophia, and announces she's already been picked to join the party in Wim's stead. Sophia bows in silence, while Kronos thunders that his superior skills will easily sweep up the whole left-side mess after Wim storms out. Towering over his old friend, Kronos fires off a final chilling command: Wim better leave, and he's never getting Kronos to say it twice again. Kronos lands the final crushing blow, declares that Dragon's wings don't need Wim anymore, and shoves him out the door at once. A close-up smashes in Wim's face, twists with pure terror, cold sweat bursting out as the shock of the sudden betrayal hits him like a truck. The scene flips to a sprawling ancient city, packed so tight with buildings it feels alive, with a towering clock tower that pierces the clouds. Above the roaring streets, birds spiral around the great clock tower's ornate spire, towering over Adventurer's hub like its shining crown landmark. This twisting city is said to be built from the dreams and drive of young adventurers who dive into the depths chasing fortune. Merchants rake in the money by hawking rare treasures, like the high fins yanked from the 35th floor, proof that this city was built on the labyrinth's loot. Market stalls are packed to the brim with magic stones hauled straight from the 60th floor, plus other top-tier treasures sold like pure gold. Once you step past the city gates, the world opens up, endless untouched wilds, packed with rare monster materials and underground sites you'll never find anywhere on the surface. In this world, your status is earned through groundbreaking wins, and the bonds forged by people who risk death side by side are said to hit harder than blood family. Anyone brave enough to gamble their lives and crawl into the labyrinth's deadly depths earns their name as an adventurer and gets honored for it. Left to fend for himself, Wim stumbles through the streets in pure despair, muttering over and over that he just wants to die. He's terrified that even with the Adventurers Guild handing out jobs, not a single party will ever hire a Granto because the role is so hated. Nobody wants the stink of it. He stands there, staring at the board, torn between going solo to hunt weak little targets or joining some pathetic F-rank party, while a nagging fear whispers that he might be wildly overrating himself. Raucous laughter and clinking drinks spill out of the inn, and it only makes Wim's miserable mood feel even worse. Wim stares at the tiny handful of coins in his palm, and the truth hits him hard. Exile has stripped him down to almost nothing. He figures deep sorrow needs a drink to dull the ache. So he steels himself and heads straight into the lively place. A sharp bell snaps through the air as he shoves the door open, and a bright, cheerful voice greets him on the spot with a warm welcome. A cheerful buster waitress named Anne clocks him the second he steps in, then beams and shouts his name like they've been friends for years. Wim gives Anne a respectful nod, and when she says she's already heard the latest news about his party, he just stands there like, all right, let's see what she knows. She practically bursts with excitement, gushing her congratulations after snagging the rumor that Dragon's Wings actually wiped out the floor boss. Then the other patrons piled in, taunting him as world number one and firing off questions like, so you're going to treat the whole house to a celebration? Gretison bets that once the guild officially checks the boss kill site, his crew is getting bumped up to A rank soon. Without a shred of celebration in him, Wim quietly waves it off, then orders a beer and his usual plate of sausage. He plops down at the bar by himself, digs into his meal with his knife carving through a sausage, and the snap of every bite gets swallowed by the noisy chatter all around him. He takes a bite and winces. The food tastes bitter and wrong, like his heavy heart is poisoning his appetite. Out of nowhere, a familiar, creepy foo-hee-hi-hi chuckle bursts from his throat and he jolts back, snapping his hands up to clamp over his mouth in shock. He still winces with pain, remembering Kronos always snapping at him to stop laughing like that, because it was just plain disgusting. A bolt of realization hits him, and he finally snaps free, no longer part of Dragon's Wings, no more chained rules. He scans the other adventurers clustered in loud little groups, and the moment his family turns their backs on him, loneliness crashes in like a wave. Win stares at those old celebrations and admits, straight to himself, that no matter how hard he tried, he was never really good at jumping into their conversations. Wim stares at his empty plate, and memories of his wild time with the party hit him hard. Sweet laughs, bitter aftertaste, until he finally admits to himself, yeah, it really was fun. Reality crashes in when he realizes he's got nowhere left. No home, no place that feels like it's his. Anne watches him from across the bar, silently aching as she feels for the shattered adventurer. That sudden doorbell blast yanks Wim out of his deep slump, and a familiar voice cuts through the silence, calling his name. In pure disbelief, he gapes as a disheveled Heidi Marie stumbles into the inn doorway, wheezing like she's run a mile. Then he snaps, demanding to know why she followed him all the way here. Panic floods the red-haired mage's face as she locks eyes with Wim, regret spilling from her silence like it's choking her. Meanwhile, the camera swings up to the Adventure Guild headquarters, massive, ornate domes towering over the whole city. In the master's office, an official strides in and slams down a formal report. Fresh details from the exam of the giant crocodile carcass they just wiped out on the 98th floor. The guildmaster leans in, grips every word about their teamwork, then demands the investigators' honest verdict on how that battle really went. He can't stop wondering if the dragon's official wing report even matches the real proof they found right there at the scene. Up close, the beast's corpse tells the truth. Most of its wounds, even the fatal strike, came from nothing fancy. A plain machete. The examiner rules that magic and enchanted swords can leave scars, but they don't have the punch to truly hurt the high-level monster. The investigation slams into a shocking twist when they confirm Wim Strauss is the only one in the party who had a machete in his hands. The official swears it all makes sense as a non-competent grantor somehow wipes out the floor boss by himself, just pure strength, no help. Almost impossible, but somehow true. A shadowy stranger leans over a razor-detailed city map, eyes locked tight on one pinpoint, marked deep inside the tangled streets. Totally baffled, the girl stares at Wim's tracker crest and realizes it's slid right out of the Dragon's Wings headquarters and straight into a cheap inn. What's going on? She digs through her gear, muttering under her breath, hunting for her wiretap device so she can snag even more intel. A sharp ping slices the silence and she locks onto her target, zeroing in on the transmission's exact source. Through the device, she catches Kronos' cruel voice straight away, telling Wim to get lost, scum, and it confirms the worst fear she's been trying not to believe. Rage seethes through her as she clenches her fist and vows to strike back at Kronos for daring to talk to her beloved Wim like that. Desperate to catch him, she rockets toward the crumbling inn, screaming his name as she closes in on the towering wooden walls. Inside the tavern, the door blasts open, and a panting girl stumbles in hard, instantly pulling every startled gaze from every table. Wim snaps around in shock, eyes going wide as Hyde Mary bursts into view in the doorway, breathing hard, cheeks flushed from a sprint. Greta Sand meets the newcomer with a smile that says she already saw this coming. But Wim's too stunned to even wrap his head around Hyde Mary popping up out of nowhere. The waitress leans in with a mischievous grin and teases Mary, barking, "Stalker S. John," just to watch the girl go bright red and flustered. Hyde Mary shoots right back, snaps that her name has no S in it at all, and then fires off a savage jab at Greta, calling her a cowgirl. Two women snap back and forth with drop-dead chants, the air buzzing with Hyde Mary call-outs, and Greta just smirks as she struts her chest, bouncing with a loud boing in every shot. Ignoring the teasing, Hyde Mary shuts it down mid-banter, eyes locked on Wim, and snaps that she's not there to start trouble with the waitress. She slides up to his table, fear written all over her face, and asks, "Are you okay?" But Wim can only stutter, completely lost in the confusion. Wim figures the news about his firing has already blown up, and he anxiously asks if she's here because of Dragon's Wings. Hyde Mary flat out denies hearing any rumors, and poor Wim is left staring in confusion. How did she know something was wrong if it wasn't all just gossip? She nonchalantly drops the bombshell that she knows everything about him, turning her sudden arrival into a mystery that just gets darker. Hyde Mary swears it's just because they're from the same village, but Wim can't hide it. She's terrified that this means she knows something more. A flashback bubble snaps and young Wim finally gets it, realizing her explanation actually clicks, and his suspicion loosens just a little. Still scratching his head in confusion, Wim can't help but wonder what just happened to make her suddenly rush over. Mary and Gretis went in hiding as they grabbed him and squeezed for answers, because the way he looked so crushed made it clear something terrible had just happened. Wim fumbles for the words, rubbing the back of his neck like he's terrified as he braces to drop the bombshell. He finally bears the truth to the whole room, saying it straight: he got fired from Dragon's Wings. The tavern explodes into shock. Everyone snaps, still mid-bite, as his confession crashes into the room like a falling blade. One adventurer slams his hand on the table and roars for answers. Why did Wim get fired when their party was seconds away from an A-rank promotion? The patrons huddle and whisper. Sure, they know the other three members well. But when it comes to Win, they only ever knew him for one thing: always stuck doing chores. Wim tells them he barely got a second to pack, yet he still left all the crucial paperwork behind for them. He shrugs off his own importance, swearing anyone could fill his shoes, and then he points to Sophia, his replacement, like she's crazy capable. As Win introduces the stunning elf who's taken her spot in the party, Hyde Mary's eyes snap to the name Sophia, and he can't look away. Greta clicks her tongue in pure disgust, tearing into Kronos as a damn womanizer, because he doesn't even hesitate to swap out a party member the second a new girl walks in. Hyde Mary nods with a heavy face, admitting the rumors about the leader's actions are probably dead on. Wim drops his head and lets out a heavy sigh, wishing he'd managed to earn enough trust to stay in the party. A familiar, nervous chuckle bursts from Wim's lips as he scrambles to dodge the suffocating tension. He whips his hand over his mouth in pure panic, realizing he just fell back into the exact habit Kronos hated with a burning passion. Hyde Mary leans in with a gentle smirk and lets him know he still hasn't managed to fix that weird little laugh. Wim drops his gaze in shame and blurts out whether she finds it disgusting, because his old leader asked the same thing, didn't he? Hyde Mary tilts her head and gently shakes it, telling him right then and there that it doesn't disgust her in the slightest. She props her chin on her hand and admits she's totally into the way he laughs, because it feels like the real him. Caught off guard by the compliment, Wim stammers that she can't say stuff like that because he might take it the wrong way. Hyde Mary locks eyes with him, soft affection blazing through her, and coolly tells him she doesn't mind one bit if he thinks the wrong thing. Steam practically blasts from Wim's ears as he wildly flaps his hands, begging her to quit tormenting him. The room tumbles into a stunned hush while Wim scrambles to get his head back after that sudden, brutal romantic hit. Wim goes back to the main topic, stares into his drink, and finally admits he still can't wrap his head around why they fired him. Hyde Mary takes a casual sip of her drink, then drops the blunt truth like it's nothing. She already beat the floor boss all by herself. Wim snaps a blink, completely baffled, and blurts, "What do you mean by that absurd thing?" She slams her glass down and declares that the other dragon's wings can't kill the boss, so it has to be him standing at the end. Panicking, Wim flails his hands and swears it was all just a misunderstanding and that his lucky finishing blow somehow happened by accident. He insists the win didn't come from one hero. It was the non-stop, team-wide damage from the whole party stacking up until victory finally hit. Hidemary snaps in hard, claiming the floor boss took 0 damage from anyone except Wim. Wim lets out a jittery laugh. Sure, Hidemary is wildly overrating just how much he can pull off as a support mage. He swears it's only desperation that drove him. He couldn't bear being a burden, while everyone else flexed their incredible talents. He rubs his neck and blurts out, "Why does she think I'm something special?" Because the moment he looks at himself, all he sees is a total failure. Mary's face burns as she blushes hard, looks away and fights for the words because her faith in him is total, and it shows. Greta slams through the moment, her face tight with worry, and calls out to him from the other side of the counter. The waitress says she's been in this city her whole life, and in all that time, she's never once heard of anyone going solo on a floor boss. She warns Hidemary to quit her nasty habit, spinning these weird little stories just to flatter the thing she won't stop stalking. Greta snaps at her for crossing the line, but Hidemary fires back. She knows the truth because she wired herself into that battle. The tavern is still roaring around them, but Hidemary's revelation hits the air like a crushing weight. Wim glares into his cup, muttering that the real reason they fired him wasn't anything else, it was pure lack of trust. Hidemary slams her palm onto the table with a bone-rattling thud, and her face twists tight with pure annoyance. She snarls at Wim, demanding he drop that pathetic, wimpy act right now, no delays. Whipping around to the counter, she snatches up a beer and snaps off a rude jab, calling Greta a cowgirl like it's an insult. Greta storms in that the mage can't handle his booze, but Hidemary slams in fast, shuts her down, and orders her to pour the drink anyway. Wim cringes in the dead quiet, then Gratis nods, and they agree to bring only one drink. The waitress strides back in and slams a huge wooden tankard of beer right in front of the pouty girl. Hidemary immediately blurts out a drunken rant about cognitive dissonance and the fable of the fox and the grapes. Right as she's about to finish her point, she crumples forward onto the table and drops out cold, face first. Moments later, she jolts awake, demands another drink, and Greta cuts her off, pointing out she's still only halfway through her first jug. Win snaps and tells them they're done for the day. She's had enough. Right before they head out, Hidemary shoves a business card across the table toward her friend. Win snatches the card, squints at the name Naktlul, and just stares in total confusion. The card flashes a full brown emblem of the strongest A-rank party around, so respected and so ruthless with screening that just owning it screams status. Wim remembers how Hidemary got snapped up by that elite crew right at the start of her career, and she carved out her reputation almost overnight. Flashback hits hard. Hidemary writes a note, then invites Wim to swing by their party house the very next day. When he asks if he can just roll up, she tells him to work for them on a temporary basis to get the experience, and she straight up promises to back him and vouch for him. With cheeks burning in pride, she declares she's the 74th sage, and since she's gunning for top brass, putting all of this together is a total piece of cake for her. In the here and now, a half-awake, groggy Hidemary groans as Wim hauls her out of the inn beneath the night sky. Win shoots Greta a grateful smile, then carefully shifts the sleeping girl on his back. Greta asks if he needs a strengthening buff to carry that weight, but Wim just laughs and tells her she's not heavy at all. Hidemary mumbles in her sleep that Grantor's weak, then rubs her cheek against his shoulder like she can't help it. Greta waves them off and snaps at Wim to watch his step, because those drunk adventurers are stumbling around the streets at this hour. Wim trudged through the dim cobblestone streets, completely swallowed by deep thoughts about that invitation. He's terrified the Naktlebel crew will judge him the moment he joins, just because he's only there on Hidemary's say-so. A cold shadow of insecurity flickers across his face as he worries that someone at his level would only drag problems onto an elite party. His biggest nightmare is that when the inevitable failure finally hits, Hidemary will turn on him and hate him for good. Suddenly, a glass bottle rockets out of the darkness straight at the two of them. A bottle crashes into the ground with a violent smash right beside them, and a visual effect flashes that it just scored a 100 impact. Rockus bursts out laughing from a nearby alleyway, shattering the night's silence like it never stood a chance. Wim whips around, and in the shadows he spots two figures, with one jeering that the thrower didn't land a single hit on the target. In the alley, one of the drunks throws his head back and gulps down the last bitter dregs from a dark bottle. With a satisfied breath, he announces his move and shoves the empty bottle to his equally drunk buddy. Wim barrels on, steering Hydemary past the men as their jeers crash down only to rage because their thrown bottle missed its mark. The adventurer keeps marching without slowing down, and one of the men snaps at him with an aggressive shout. The drunk lurches forward, face blazing red, mumbling in confusion as he struggles to lock onto the world through his blurry, messed-up vision. He strides into the light and squares up to Wim on the spot, barking a slur to steal the young man's attention right away. Staring at the figure strapped to Wim's back, the man breaks into stumbles, struggling to make out who the person is. Hydemary sprawls on Wim's shoulder, sound asleep, then lets out a tiny hiccup that yanks the drunk's attention straight to her. Recognition lights up his face. He jabs a finger at her and erupts that she's the thief from right the other day. Wim freezes in confusion, mumbling thief over and over as he scrambles to figure out how the accusation could possibly be about his sleeping friend. The guys all scream in sync because she cleaned out the whole limited edition Snowball snack stash while they were still stuck in line. Wim's chest tightens with sympathy for their petty complaint, but in his head he just scoffs. Calling her a thief for shopping is completely ridiculous. They shove reason aside and demand instant satisfaction, then order Wim to wake up so she can apologize. Wim lets out a shaky sigh, eyes tight with worry, because he finally realizes he can't charm his way out of this mess. The drunks snap from his silence and start yelling at the top of their lungs, demanding he stop pretending not to hear them. One of the men lunges forward and yanks Hydemary by the arm, shouting at Wim to wake her up right now. A magic crest erupts on Wim's chest as he quietly triggers his pump-up Zwei Mole ability, blasting his physical stats into a doubled frenzy. Wim bolts out of sight in a flash, and the man's hand snaps shut on nothing but empty air. The two drunks just stare, dumbfounded in the dead, empty street, spinning around like lost puppets, trying to figure out how their target vanished without a trace. Tearing through the alleyways, Wim quietly shoots out an apology for Hydemary, remembering how she'd shared those same candies with him in the first place. In that alley, the aggressive drunk just stands there with his mouth hanging open. Totally stunned that anything could move that fast, Wim slips away from the confrontation, convinced his sudden retreat will only crank their fury even higher. The two men stood there shaking in cold sweat, and the terrifying truth of what just happened finally crashed down on them. Panic floods their eyes when it clicks this sleeping girl is the infamous Hydemary of Necklibble. They huddle in frantic whispers, scrambling to figure out whether the guy who moves at that unreal speed is secretly part of that elite group too. One guy goes pale as he stares at the ground, then asks his partner if he's noticed the damage they left behind. Deep, jagged gouges tore into the stone pavement the moment Wim launched himself forward, like his kickoff had ripped terror straight out of his bones. Laughing off the panic he caused, Wim tears through the city streets, sprinting straight for the clock tower with Hydemary locked tight on his back. He finally comes to a stop at a safe distance, wheezing like crazy, and mutters to himself that those drunks won't chase him. All safe and sound, Hydemary lets out a satisfied little groan in her sleep, totally clueless about the chaos she just unleashed. Lost. Wim jerks a look as something shifts on his back, then blurts, "Hydemary, are you awake?" checking if she's finally sober enough to stumble along by herself. She refuses to let go, clamps her arms around his neck in a crushing squeeze, then murmurs, soft but certain, that he's not moving, not yet. Wim's thoughts snap back to the earlier promise she made. She'd personally vouch for him just to calm the panic in his heart and get him into her elite party. Deep's self-doubt starts clawing at him as he wonders if someone with his low standing even deserves a shot at joining the legendary Necklibble. He stares at the massive gap between them and realizes she isn't just a rare sage, she's also a top-tier candidate, right in line for the guild's highest brass. Guilt crushed him as he swore to himself he couldn't bring any more trouble to the one person who'd always treated him with real, genuine kindness. A vivid memory slams into him, Hydemary shouting, "Just come with me," bulldozing his insecurities with pure, unstoppable emotion. Her hand clamps down hard on his shoulder, yanking him back to the moment while her steady support keeps him standing. She leans close and whispers promises into his ear, telling him the world is his for the taking, and that when he finally stands beside Nacht Liebel, he'll see his true worth at last. With a calm yet unshakable voice, she orders Wim to quit pulling his own reins and finally start living the life he truly wants. Her smiling face crashes into his mind, flooding him with warmth and that kind of unconditional trust he's been starving for way too long. Wim stammers, blurts out a heartfelt thank you, her eyes shining with gratitude that she found him when he was sinking in the darkest depths of despair. With a brand new fire in his chest, he leans in and tells her, "If I'm going to live free, then you get to live free too. Live exactly how you want." Chasing his way back to reality, he nervously blurts that now that she's awake and sober, she should probably climb off his back. Mary shuts him down with one blunt word, then buries her face deeper into his coat, trying to smother the heat rising in her cheeks. When he presses her for a reason, she just mutters that his back feels perfect and makes it crystal clear she's not going anywhere. She leans in and murmurs that he's warm, that his back is broad like a fortress, so she feels safe, calm, and she doesn't want to let that peace slip away. Her voice turns into a gentle, desperate plea as she begs him to let her stay like this for just a little longer. Wim's cheeks burn with shock at the sudden closeness. He stammers his yes, then commits to carrying her for as long as she needs. Step by step, Wim pushes into the silent night, and in the hush of it all, he vows to burn his past away and give tomorrow everything he's got. Nacht Liebel's emblem stands tall like a battle banner, proudly claiming the biggest A-rank party in the whole land, over 100 elite warriors under one roof. A towering mansion dominates the sky, screaming party time for a guild that's already crushed 30 of every floor boss anyone can name. A silent guard in bulky armor towers at the iron gates, eyes darting over the perimeter, hunting for the first flicker of trouble. Wim paces back and forth in front of the entrance, rattled nerves spilling off him in visible waves while the guard keeps a close eye. Sweat drenches Wim's face as he freezes in place, crushed by self-doubt, and starts wondering, do I really belong in a place this prestigious? The guard squints at the shaky guy, and just like that, he pins the jittery young man as a suspicious threat. Deciding to step in, the guard strides up to the trembling wreck and barks, "What's your business with the guild?" Wim jolts in terror at the sudden showdown, stammering out a messy, incoherent explanation for why he's even there. Panic swallows everything, and Wim blurts his creepy signature laugh right in the guard's face by accident. The guard jerks back in panic, convinced that the sudden movement and that weird noise are the first move in an attack to snatch a weapon. Wim desperately tries to cool things down, then fumbles for the business card Heidemarie handed him and thrusts it forward with shaking hands. The guard's face snaps into total shock as he reads the card, then realizes that this suspicious kid is actually her friend. Wim shot a confused blink, thrown off by how the guard dragged out that ominous word her. Heidemarie storms onto the scene, grinning so bright it lights up the room, and ushers Wim into the headquarters of Nacht Liebel. Wim bursts inside and goes, "Whoa!" His eyes bulging as the opulent hall hits him everywhere, gleaming with a sparkling fountain at the center. As Heidemarie gestures at the giant training hall and the cafeteria, Wim can't help but stare, because this place feels less like a party house and more like a royal mansion. He shoots out a nervous excuse and slips through the massive corridors, shrinking with every step as the towering halls dwarf him completely. The guard, Abel, throws out an apology for his earlier hostility, then hits Wim with a blunt truth. She looks nothing like the person he was told to expect. Abel's whole body tensed at the size of it, and he demanded answers. How could he have made a mistake this big when the description he got felt nothing like the real thing? Blushing hard and totally flustered, Heidemarie yells at the top of her lungs for the Abel to shut up. While the guard keeps insisting she said Wim was a gallant, masculine man, mortified, Mary grabs Wim and yanks him past the guard, forcing him out of the way as she barrels down the hallway to escape her embarrassment. They burst into the main gathering hall, where the air hums with chaos, top-tier adventurers crowding in, trading intel, and getting ready to hunt their next quest. Heidemarie skids to a stop in front of the seated figure and confidently declares she's delivered the recruit just like she promised. Wim gets hit with a sharp, piercing stare the moment a woman with long, sleek hair clocks his arrival, and she greets him with pure, cold composure. Wim freezes on the spot, eyes wide because the second he looks up, he instantly recognizes the crushing power pouring off that woman. He realizes he's face to face with Camilla the Silver Hair, the legendary leader of Naklibul. Camilla leans in, scans him from head to toe, and then snaps that he's way smaller than the warrior she thought she'd get. She bursts into a hearty laugh, teasing him with that rumor how he's allegedly a handsome masculine hero, while the hide-marry panic ferments in the background. A massive armored gauntlet thrusts toward him, offering a handshake that feels like it's packed with her overwhelming strength. Win's hands shake as she reaches for him, and he nervously introduces himself as a former member of Dragon's Wings. Then he fully steps into his new life. Camilla breaks into a real smile, shocked by the killer grip hiding behind that quiet new recruit. She welcomes him to Naklibul with all the formality she can muster, and drops the bombshell that Hidemary already spilled every detail about what he can do. Wim blurts out in shaky stammers that his mana is low, and he basically just did chores, and Camilla immediately presses him on what he actually handled in his old party. He tells them straight up, his job wasn't fighting at all. He only handled enemy detection scans and ran the day-to-day office work. The moment he tries to say he got fired, Mary snaps into panic and clamps a hand over his mouth, shutting him up before he can spill any bad, unnecessary details. Camilla tunes out the bickering, then calmly assigns the women to rearguard duty for their next scouting dive. Shock hits Wim hard as he stammers because he can't wrap his head around the fact that they're about to march into the labyrinth right now. Camilla storms off, insisting that real-world experience beats everything, and Wim just stands there, reeling from the shock of her sudden command. Panic crashes over him as he blurts that it's way too soon, and he's never once rated with a crew this massive before. Hidemary spins around with a dazzling smile and tells him, "Don't worry, everything's going to be perfectly fine." Wim freezes solid, terror blasting through her as she still refuses to believe in her own sister's brave optimism in the middle of danger. The story slams into the chilling, stone-walled corridors deep inside the deadly labyrinth. Every last Nact Libel guild member gathers in stiff silence around a glowing stone pillar right at the heart of the chamber. Ancient runes flare across the structure as the magical device powers up, gearing to launch its teleportation in one explosive burst. A blinding column of light blasts out from the pillar, and you know the teleportation sequence is finally fully charged. This isn't just any gadget, it's a teleportation circle, a crucial lifeline carved into certain levels to help adventurers blast through the maze. Beat the floor boss and boom, those circles unlock, letting your party rocket skip tons of floors in a single shot through special routes. The massive party kicks off its march, and their armored footfalls thunder loudly across the cold stone floor. Wim freezes in total confusion when Hidemary abruptly stops dead right in front of him. The other guild members stop dead in their tracks and whip their heads around, feeling the air turn sharp as the whole procession slams to a halt. A battle-worn veteran stiffens with a grim stare, silently waiting for the leaders to break the deadlock. Hidemary stands in total silence, stone-faced, ready to slam through a crucial security protocol meant for anyone who isn't one of them. Wim's thrown off by the sudden stop. He blurts to his friend, "What's happening? Why did everyone just freeze?" She slaps down a thick cloth, then shoots him an apologetic look and begs him to wear the blindfold for just a little while. Hidemary bluntly tells him, "Since you're technically an outsider, you don't get to see the guild's secret teleport line." Wim slips the blindfold on without a fuss, fully admitting that shielding the valuable route intel is just his built-in advantage. Blind as a bat, he stands there frozen in place until Hidemary finally tells him to stretch out his hand and grab her. Wim clamps down on her hand, hauling her along to guide him through the darkness. Silence crashes between them as they cling hand in hand, while the rest of the party stares at the spectacle. Hidemary's face goes crimson as fury and joy collide, and he can't help but squeal inside because he's actually brave enough to hold her hand in public. Wim wildly flails his hands in pure panic, stammering that he should grab her shoulder instead because he can't see a thing. He pleads for Mary to stop teasing him, totally oblivious to the fact she's secretly loving every second of holding his hand. With his friend at his side, the blindfolded mage keeps pace with the party as they sprint through a chain of secret teleportation circles, leaping their way forward. The whole crew finally reaches the massive, jaw-dropping architecture of the 97th floor, buried deep inside that endless maze. Wim can't believe her eyes as an A-rank party steamrolls forward with insane efficiency, somehow hitting a floor that deep in the blink of an eye. Panic slams into his chest as he convinces himself he's worthless, like he's got nothing worth sharing, not even a shred of dignity. He can't shake the fear that just copying everyone else will drag his massive, talented group down and cost them precious time. Mary flicks a glance back at the mumbling recruit and instantly clocks it. His nerves hit hard, because it's his very first time with them. She's not annoyed at all. She smirks to herself and realizes that being careful is exactly the kind of trait an adventurer needs. Wim yelps in pure surprise when he crashes into something, then freezes as he realizes Camilla is standing there right behind him, looming. The silver-haired leader leans in with a calm smile and tells the young boy, gently but firmly, to stop clenching up like he's about to explode. She reminds him he already cleared this floor's boss back when he pulled off that beer-rank party, so he shouldn't stress at all. Camilla tells him to just do what he can, then makes it crystal clear today's only mission is to map the area. Her sudden kindness smacks him straight in the chest. Wim's eyes burn, tears spring up, and he stammers out a shaky, broken acknowledgement. Camilla reassures him one last time that Isekai'D is packed with good people. And for the first time, he finally lets his guard down and relaxes. Wim's face flips from pure anxiety to razor focus as he starts sweeping the area like something's about to go wrong. A weird anomaly snaps his focus. He freezes in place, then jerks his head up, staring at the dungeon walls like danger just screamed his name. He stalls before speaking, slipping Mary a quiet confession. Maybe he caught something, but he's terrified it's only his imagination playing tricks on him. Hesitating before he reports it, he can't shake the feeling that this strange sound is a warning, like an omen with a hidden trap waiting just out of sight. Choking down the urge to panic, he widens his magical search radius and probes that gut-deep feeling that something's seriously wrong. He thrusts his hand into the dark, funnels his mana tight, and fires a specialized detection spell to cut through the shadows. A ruthless magic circle erupts in a flash across his palm as he fires up his search ability and rips through the area, looking for answers. The spell flashes the corridor in front of him, and with his magic eyes, he suddenly sees the dungeon's hidden structures and all the secrets it's been hiding. His eyes bulge with shock as the scan locks in his fear and shows a real deadly threat just waiting to strike. He clings to the standing order. If he spots anything at all, he has to report it to Camilla right away using transmission magic. He lets his resolve slip, nods at the command, and gears up to warn the leader about the danger closing in. The party keeps climbing that massive staircase, totally oblivious to the secret mechanism already set loose in the shadows. Wim breaks formation and, with polite confidence, calls out to Camilla asking for just a moment of her time. Camilla tilts her head just enough to clock him, calls out, "Wim boy," then waits, eyes locked for his report. He declares, dead on, that a rockfall trap is planted on the upper left side, set to trigger precisely at 45 meters. Camilla shoots down the report's certainty with one razor-sharp stare, cutting right through the tension like a blade. Wim stammers, grits his teeth, and holds his ground, his gut screaming that there's a 90 chance this is a delayed activation trap. With a lazy flick of her hand, Camilla tells him to blast his findings on the public channel next time. Time ticks then. Wim clenches up, gulping hard, scared out of his mind at the thought of talking to that entire huge party all at once. Heart pounding, he fires up the transmission magic and blasts his voice out, echoing to every single member at once. He fires off a jaw-dropping report that nails the rockfall's exact mass, its shape, and precisely where it's about to crash. A wave of confusion hits the vanguard as the seasoned warriors jolt in shock at the sudden announcement. Doubt bursts through the ranks like a wildfire, and Wim panics, staring at his own choices, terrified he just made a deadly mistake. While Wim sweats bullets, Marie smirks like she's won, and Camilla stays icy calm as she steers her tank straight at the threat. Abel strides forward without a second thought, declaring he'll handle the trap himself. The armored warrior barrels straight into the danger zone, hoisting his massive shield high as if expecting the blow of a lifetime. He plants himself on the trigger point, then braces hard as the mechanism snaps alive under his boots. A colossal stone pillar crashes down out of the dark above, swinging in to flatten the defender into paste. With a thunderous crash, Abel slams the monolith onto his shield and yanks its momentum to a complete stop. Unshaken and dead serious, Abel shouts that the trap's finally cleared as the dust swirls down around him. Camilla nods, and the successful defense lands like a thunderclap, while everyone else in the party just freezes, staring in stunned silence. The adventurer's mutter turned into stunned disbelief, because the trap matched Wim's description down to the tiniest detail. They lock eyes in disbelief, because they've never seen a scout call a trap's shape ahead of time and then actually stop, wait, and confirm it. People go wild with speculation, wondering if that godlike precision is the secret power hiding behind Dragon's wings. As Hyde Mary smirks like the Cheshire Cat, a panicked Wim misreads the silence and starts spiraling, convinced he's about to be in big trouble. Hyde Mary grins as she swears Wim's normal is nothing short of exceptional, and that in no time he'll prove it wasn't just luck. In the brief lull, the whole party drops into stunned silence as Camilla locks eyes on the horizon. Still processing the shocking truth, she jolts to the truth. Wim drops high-level detection magic like it's nothing. As casual as breathing, her thoughts slam back to Dragon's Wings, the party that shot straight to the top faster than anyone could blink. Confusion chews at her as she wrestles with one brutal question. How could a mage with skills that break the game stay hidden, then get fired anyway? Wim's voice cuts through the dead air over the transmission, demanding her attention one more time. He reports a sudden spike in humidity and a creepy, total absence of the low-level winged insects in that area. The veterans lean in hard as he explains that these environmental changes scream, a dangerous predator is close. Wim realizes too late that they've blundered straight into the hunting grounds of a colossal hostile beast. He clocks the danger as the great tortoise Zeritan, and without missing a beat, he pushes for a detour to slip right past the beast. Camilla narrows her eyes, presses him for a straight answer, and demands confirmation that his report about the monster's territory is dead certain. Wim locks eyes with her, can't hide his nerves, and straight up confirms he's 90% sure his assessment is dead on. Camilla lets out a sharp sigh, then tells him straight up to use the public transmission for high-probability threats, like she's fed up with him stalling. Wim slumps in shame, stammers out a shaky apology, convinced he's somehow angered the leader. Panic starts clawing at his thoughts as he swears again that he's just made another devastating mistake. Camilla snaps an order hand the search duties to Simon and charge straight to the front lines. Wim's heart drops as soon as he reads the order. He twists it as a cruel punishment, convinced they're firing him from his role. Camilla steps forward, grabs everyone's attention, and announces, "No detours, we're hunting the great tortoise." She snaps her sharp gaze back to the recruit and flat out demands to see what he can really do as a grantor once the fighting starts. A terrified Wim finally realizes if he blows this moment, the whole world shuts its doors on him. He won't have anywhere left to go. He shoves his fear down, clenches his fists, and swears he'll give it everything to be truly useful. Camilla snaps her attention to the next move and barks for an enemy status report from the other scout. Simon checks his detection magic, then calls out that the target is dead asleep roughly 200 meters straight ahead. The commander snaps out rapid orders, "Get the vanguard in place and Hyde Mary, prep your spells now." The elite of Nachtliebel barks their battle acknowledgement in perfect unison. Then they brace themselves for war. Camilla jabs her finger at Wim and slaps him with the crucial job back Abel up and keep those buffs rolling. Wim blurts out a shaky yes, snapping into the mindset for the showdown that's about to decide his future. Wim shuts his eyes and chants his personal mantra, pulling himself into quiet seclusion just to help people in a way that doesn't draw a single spotlight. He realizes his whole mission was simple: figure out how to help people quietly, from the shadows. A razor-sharp stare snaps him out of his head as he realizes reality has ditched his perfect path, and it's gone way off course. A colossal great tortoise slams down with an ominous crunch on distant debris, and Wim stands there, totally frozen, staring the beast in the face. Hyde Mary shoves him onward, barking that they strike right now while the monster is too busy stuffing its face to notice. She tells him, "With every eye on you, this is your shot, prove to the guild what you're made of." The elite members of Nachtliebel Camilla included fix their cold, hard stares on the pair like they're about to pass judgment. Win flinched as their whole crew stared them down, and the pressure of stepping up in front of that legendary party terrified them to the bone. His heart slams against his ribs as he vows to fix the mistake he made earlier and make sure he doesn't cause a single more problem. Drowning in self-doubt about his own communication skills, he barely catches Hyde Mary shouting his nickname. Mary finally rips him out of his self-pity spiral by yelling his name right beside his ear. She grins at him like she owns the place and boldly asks for her usual support buff. Right before she launches that ice spear, Wim watches her turn, jaw dropped, as she shoulders that massive weapon, still reeling from how casually she calls for the usual. A wave of nostalgia crashes over him as he remembers their duo dives, and he realizes this same familiar rhythm is exactly what he's been craving. His anxiety finally cracks, and a real smile bursts through, like the crushing weight of everything just lifted off his shoulders. He pumps his fists again, shoots Mary a grateful grin, and declares, loud and clear, he's ready to throw down. Mary's one-of-a-kind magical contraption whirs to life, and with sharp clicks, every mechanical piece snaps into perfect place for activation. She snaps into a confident stance, grips her weapon tight, and declares it's finally time to unleash her real power on the guild. Wim immediately clocks the upgrades to her gear, and you can see the surprise on her face. She managed to triple the density while shrinking it down, and it blows her away. He breaks into a grin, eyes sparkling as he thinks, this kind of brilliant engineering is exactly what I expect from her. Mary slams the generation sequence to life, her eyes blazing as she triggers the spell with pure electric excitement. Mana starts to gather in the air, shimmering bright as the magic finally snaps into existence. Zaraton the giant tortoise suddenly stops mid-meal, jerks its massive head around, and finally spots the danger. A crushing silence drops on the battlefield as the colossal beast fixes its blazing stare on the two tiny adventurers. High above, a massive spear of solid ice bursts into existence with a thunderous crack, then locks in, ready to slam straight down. A colossal projectile hangs above the shattered ruins, looming over the pillars and crushing the spirits of the adventurers beneath it. Wim gapes upward in pure awe, realizing that any ordinary mage would be utterly crushed by just how massive this magic really is. Mary laughs like he owns the night, tapping into powers that blow past every modern magic rulebook. An infographic spills the truth, while sorcerers and priests get stuck with only certain magic types. Sages smash the rules and do something totally different. It's basically saying, Mary's sage class is the absolute strongest, because it lets her wield every kind of magic that exists. Mary leans in and tells Wim that the sages can conjure the very building blocks of magic, then forge brand new spells from nothing. With a grand theatrical flourish, she formally grants her approval of the money provided by Grantor Wim Strauss. Wim grins at his friend, then taps accept to kick off the enchantment process. With a sharp focus, Wim pours his mana into the glowing magic circle, blasting its solid frozen enchantment straight onto it. The magic circle blooms outward, snapping into place as it locks with the giant ice structure hanging above the ruins. Marie jolts in shock. He didn't buff her at all. He jammed his strengthening magic straight into the spell construct itself. That massive chunk of ice doesn't just sit there. It snaps into a new shape the instant the enchantment hits, sharpening into a vicious weapon that looks downright terrifying. Mary roars the order to fire, right as that monstrous tortoise lumbers so close it feels like it'll crush them any second. With a thunderous roar, the massive ice spear rockets ahead, crashing down to intercept the oncoming monster. The projectile rockets forward so fast, it turns into a streaking blur, ripping through the atmosphere like a bolt of lightning. A brutal explosion detonates on impact, blasting shards of ice and wreckage everywhere like the world just snapped in half. NACT. Libel's members, Camilla included, erupt into pure terror as a shockwave surges straight at them. The brutal hit yanks the giant beast off its feet and hurls it crashing into the ruin walls with a violent, bone-jarring slam. Adventurers threw their hands over their faces and braced hard as gale-force winds howled out from the impact. The great tortoise gets obliterated, its shell splinters, and its body is skewered by those massive enchanted ice spikes. Shaking from the cold, Wim blurts out an apology to protect Mary, and his panic spikes because he fears he turned the magic output up too high by accident. Marie grins and tells him it was perfect, then proudly points out that he just proved his skills to the whole party. She whips around to the leader, flashes a proud grin, and fires off a question to Camilla. What does she think of Wim's insane performance? A sickening crack tears through the air from the leader's side, and everyone's eyes snap to her armor. Camilla stares down at her shoulder pauldron, her expression stone cold as she checks the brutal new damage. Wim catches a crack in her prized armor and instantly panics. Sure, he's screwed up again somehow. Camilla snaps, calling out to Vimboy, and the poor guy jolts so hard he blurts a terrified stammer back. She shrugs off the damage, shoots him a sharp command, and tells him to power up the shield unit because a wyvern is about to crash in. She turns her back on him and demands, straight up, that he show off his defensive enchantment in action this time. Wimbos trembles with nerves, blurts out, "I get it." And you can see the relief hit as he realizes he still matters. Hydemarie keeps a smug, cat-like grin on her face as she watches the exchange, and she's instantly sure of it. Camilla definitely liked what she saw. Wim clenched his fist with iron resolve, convinced he'd been handed another shot, and swore he'd give it everything. Hydemarie lets out a sharp sigh and tells him his way of never reading the room has gotten so bad, it's basically a full-on disease. The other party members huddle and whisper, stunned at how that spear moves like it's invisible, while Mary's secret smile blooms, because she finally gets what he's truly worth. Two battle-scarred veterans lock eyes with the pair, beads of sweat pouring down their faces as the terrifying power of this brand-new grantor crushes their courage. Hydemarie whips her head toward her friend with a razor-sharp, suspicious stare, and Wim panics so hard he blurts out a frantic, "I said nothing." A towering armored warrior strides forward with a calm smile and introduces himself, Abel, the squad leader. Wim's jaw drops as he stares. This young guy is his age, yet he's already in charge of an entire unit. Abel tilts his head, all confusion, as the frozen recruit hesitates to answer his greeting. Panic crashes into Wim the moment he realizes he has zero clue what to say to a stranger. Abel leans in, asking if he's okay. Then all that comes out are frantic, incoherent panic sounds. Wim spirals into self-loathing, thinking his awkward silence is making him look completely disgusting to the leader. A grim vision of rejection crashes through his mind, and the moment he feels it, he knows Abel is going to turn on him. Just like every single person before, Abel lets out a shockingly blinding smile and whispers to the nervous mage, "Relax. Like everything's under control." Wim flushes scarlet, and this sudden wave of warmth surges in his chest at how unexpectedly kind they're being. Abel brings up defensive buffs, and Wim just shrugs meekly, admitting he hasn't really dealt with them yet. Another party member jumps in, saying grantors are basically extinct in Naklibal because nobody wants that job. Wim tells them straight up, his magic isn't just cast, it's powered by your own mind, and the spell won't kick in unless the target says they approve. It goes on to say, these buffs can crank up your physical stats, like strength and speed, or level up your weapons and make them way better. Right as he starts explaining that the target has to be willing, a stern voice snaps in out of nowhere and cuts him off mid-sentence. A massive, scarred brute strides up and bluntly declares he hates getting buffs. Wim's body locks up with total disbelief, totally blindsided by that sudden, brutal rejection. The guy swings his way in and says, "I'm Mark," then leans in for the details, quickly tossing out a humble apology in case his blunt words sounded rude. Mark breaks it down. Those buffs don't just boost power, they totally mess with how your body feels, and then he admits the brutal truth. He'd already gone through a nightmare with a grantor before. He remembers that last mage who just dumped attributes on himself with zero restraint, and it all spiraled, ripping control of his own body during the fight. Wim rushes in to swear that he only uses beginner-level buffs and that they won't steal his control of his own body. He claims he's built the magic from a bunch of simple effects stitched together, but Mark's face only tightens with even fiercer intensity. Wim jerks back, locking eyes with the veteran's terrifying, full-on aggressive glare. Mark bares his teeth and snaps at Wim, demanding to know if he thinks Mark's some amateur just because he asked one question. Tara's gaze hits Wim as he tries to convince himself he really managed to piss off that terrifying veteran. Mark quickly clears it up. He's not snapping out of anger. He just wants the real details so he can learn. Win realizes with a cold respect that Mark's terrifying questioning isn't cruelty at all. It's just the meticulous edge of a sharp-tongued elite. He tells the tank his senses won't shift for a second, but Mark presses him, "Are you 100 sure?" Mark leans in with a brutal ha, and the poor mage's panic spikes fresh and sharp. A tense silence swallows the air as Wim strains to decode that terrifying sound blaring from the veteran. Confusion slams through the shield unit as they doubt Wim's claim that his buff changes absolutely nothing about how it feels. Wim begs for the chance to spell out how it works, and he swears the real reason his power hits so clean, no sensory chaos, no disruption, is the secret source of his skill. Mark stammered out a reluctant yes, clearly not ready for the lecture, but he still decided to hear it out. Wim's face breaks into a bright smile the moment he realizes this is the first time anyone has ever genuinely asked him to explain himself. He bursts into an intense, passionate speech, slicing the difference between the rusting method and the casting method of application magic right down the middle. Wim points out that every adventurer's built different physique, strength, everything. So a one-size-fits-all buff is doomed from the start. He warns that reckless magical upgrades can snap a user's bones, and Mark immediately roars out, shouting, "You're right." Mark stared at the recruit's knowledge with pure awe, praising Nacht Liebel's elite standards for turning them into real experts. Wim won't let up. He machine guns this wild academic rant, dumping a non-stop flood of mind-bending magical theory that totally whiffs over everyone's heads. Wim suddenly realizes he's been rambling, snaps to a stop, and offers a sheepish grin as he blurts out an apology. Mark waves off the apology, but you can tell he's still dazed from how much information hit him all at once. Wim grins and reveals his secret. He fuses 7 defense enchantments with 25 sensory enchantments into one perfectly balanced spell. Mark throws his hands up to the sky and yells for him to stop, drowning in all those brutal technical details. The whole squad freezes in stunned silence, all eyes locked on that tiny mage who just casually dropped a whole thesis on them. Wim cowers in fear, sure his way too excited explanation has blown everything up again, just like always. Mark snaps back to his senses and blurts in disbelief, asking Wim if he's really saying he can hand out dozens of enhancements all at once. Wim dips his head and admits the truth: he has to shred and cast the magic just right, because his mana runs painfully low. Mark leans in close, firing off one last check, making sure his body's senses stay totally normal, just like always. Wim nods hard and says the only real change Mark will feel is this: his body is finally firing on all cylinders like never before. Mark shuts his eyes tight, plants a hand on his chest, and loudly declares with full solemn certainty that he approves the grant. The rest of his squad stares at him in disbelief. Then they fire back, "Are you really sure you want to trust that newcomer?" Mark grins wide and straight up says, Wim's massive knowledge is all the proof anyone needs that he's fully qualified. Wim stood there, staring in disbelief as his heart surged, because for the first time, someone finally trusted him. Tears prick at the corners of his eyes as he swears no matter what he'll do everything in his power to repay that trust. Right when Wim hits the spell, a towering, glowing magic circle blooms around Mark's torso. The veteran tank jerks in a sharp gasp, eyes bulging as the enchantment locks in and magic floods his frame. Mark drags his thumb across his chin, humming under his breath as he studies every tiny shift in his body. Mark and Abel face off in the stone training hall, squaring up and ready to unleash the new enhancement magic and see what it really does. Mark suddenly rockets forward and smashes a heavy punch into Abel's shield, testing out the power he just unlocked. 2 warriors crash into each other with brutal intensity, their heavy armor barely slowing them as they slice through the air with non-stop speed and unreal smooth motion. Wim hangs back on the sidelines, twitching with nerves, wringing his hands as he finally works up the courage to ask what the magic actually feels like. Mark whips his gaze to him, face dead serious, and says straight up that words aren't even needed. He blurts out, eyes wide with awe, that he can move his body even better than he ever did in his physical prime. Abel nods with pure excitement, staring in disbelief like, how is her body this light? It feels unreal, like it can't be real. Wim clutches his chest, finally breathing easy after he didn't hurt them, and lets out a real, thank God. The moment the Grantor showed up, the other Shield Knights surged in like a tidal wave, shouting for him to speed up and power them up too. Win lights up with a bright, real smile and eagerly agrees to boost the rest of the squad. The story whips us across the massive dungeon floor pillars, towering on every side as the main force finally rallies in full force. Wim suddenly starts to tremble, his senses getting slammed by a massive hostile presence looming nearby. He mutters that the enemy's right here, and his instincts blare like a siren because a huge threat just showed up. A teammate clocks his trembling and asks if he's all right, but Wim shoots back that something huge is right around the corner. Camilla instantly feels the threat and screams for everyone to grab their gear. Battle is starting right now. Wim clenches harder on his collar and his face locks into a fierce, focused look like he's ready to charge. A nightmarish winged demon drops out of the shadows, its multi-eyed skull head staring down like it's hunting. That creature's cluster of eyes spasms wildly, and it rips out a gut-churning growl that sends chills straight down your spine. It hangs in the dungeon's towering arch, screeching straight at the adventurers who refuse to back down. Energy swells inside the monster's maw as it prepares to unleash a brutal breath attack. The shield unit surges ahead as one, locking into a deadly wall formation, roaring a war cry while they brace for impact. The demon spits out a gigantic ball of magical fire, and it rockets straight at the defensive line. A raging fireball slams into the magically reinforced shields, and the vanguard gets swallowed by a blinding burst of light. To everyone's shock, the attack doesn't just get stopped, it gets violently slapped right back at the caster. The demon screeches in sheer agony as it blasts itself with its own fireball, getting slammed into the ground mid-air. Spectators choke on disbelief as they roar that the shield unit just pulled off a jaw-dropping high-level reflection maneuver. Crouched behind his shield, Mark stared dead ahead, sweat ripping down his face as pure shock hit him like a wave. He whips around to his squadmates, voice shaking as he demands to know, did they seriously just pull off a reflection? The other knights blurted that it was their very first time, stunned and wondering if they'd just witnessed a miracle. Mark locks eyes on the horizon with a twisted grin, flat out refusing to accept that one stupid buff could pull off something that insane. Camilla screams the order to fire, demanding the long-range units unleash their attack right now. A brutal storm of arrows and magic blasts rains onto the wyvern, exploding in a dazzling, violent spectacle. A mage roared out the incantation for Jupiter's spear, and a brutal lightning bolt detonated into the beast like thunder from the heavens. As the smoke thins, Guji stands there, smoke in the air, untouched, then lets out a mocking growl like he's laughing at the chaos. Camilla stared at the failure with ice-cold focus, watching in disbelief as their attacks didn't even leave a scratch. She spots that one-of-a-kind gleam in its eyes and realizes a deadly anti-magic coating shields every single scale. The leader snaps to the truth. They're not up against a normal wyvern at all. They've found a rare subspecies that shrugs off standard magic like it's nothing. Wim clenches his jaw and watches in stunned silence, completely lost on what move could ever scratch a foe this unstoppable. Camilla shoots her hand up, barks orders for the whole party to back off, and clears the area right now. With a cocky smirk, she declares that the time has finally come. This is her turn to step onto the stage. Her cape whips and billows as she steps forward, blasting an unstoppable aura of raw power. Hyde Mary flashes a smile at Camilla and tells her, "Don't worry, take the lead from here and handle the rest of this battle with your capable hands." Camilla's thoughts snap back to that wild reflection maneuver the shield unit pulled off earlier. She can't believe it. 5 different people pull off that brutal skill in flawless sync. Like they're one perfect machine, a spark of intense curiosity ignites in her as she realizes Wim's magic still has untapped power, just waiting to explode. She can't stop wondering if that same buff hits her body. What kind of monster would she turn into? The mystery of what's ahead sparks a grin on her face as she races to picture herself shattering her own physical limits. She whips around and barks, "Vim boy!" at the rookie, snatching his attention on the spot. Wim jogs in with a jittery grin and asks if she wants him to slap a buff on her before the fight. Camilla demands he unleash every single offensive buff in his entire arsenal. Wim weighs the danger and declares a 3 times boost is the absolute ceiling for what's safe. Camilla narrows her eyes and hits him with a sharp accusation. She says he's playing it safe, then dares him to go even further. Wim spirals into panic, screaming inside her head that if she cranks herself up any higher, her body is going to break. Ignoring the warning, Camilla thrusts her hands up and barks for a 10-fold power boost. Wim roars inside her own head, stunned because she can't wrap her mind around the sheer madness of what she's being asked to do. He tries to warn her this boost will get them killed, but she shuts her ears and refuses to hear reason. Sweat drenches his face as the leader's dead serious about this reckless demand hits him like a punch. He quietly concedes that, in theory, it could happen, and that admission basically locks his fate for good. Hyde Mary flashes a sadistic grin and practically purrs that she can't wait to see the results. Wim trembled in front of the leader, cornered into casting the deadliest buff he'd ever dared to use. Wim clenched his focus, thrusting out his hand as the glow ignited. Then he launched into the spell sequence like it was a lightning strike. A blazing digital grid snaps over Camilla's silhouette as her spell, Analyze, rips through her entire physical form in one instant. Wim stares at her biology in awe, wondering if she's even human as she marvels at that unreal muscle and bone density. His mind spirals into non-stop calculations, mapping every fulcrum and center of gravity so he can sharpen the magical enhancement to perfection. He locks in a strategy built for maximum efficiency and the least risk, then calls on Bowen to make sure even the tiniest parts of her body get reinforced. The spell, Enchant, crashes down on Camilla, and her eyes go huge as that massive power rips through her veins. A confident smirk flashes across her face as she feels that overwhelming power surge through her enhanced body. She yanks out her massive blade, charges the beast, and screams the name of her weapon, Great Executioner. Camilla stands stone still in the ruined dust, calm as ever, staring straight down the horrific wyvern like it's no threat at all. She rockets forward in a blur, charging the flying monster head-on with her blade poised to crush it with one devastating strike. Her eyes lock in, and she fires up her signature multiplication skill, blasting the attack to an absurdly higher scale. With a scream, she whips her sword, and a colossal bolt of pure energy detonates outward, carving through the air so hard it feels like the sky gets split in half. A swarm of adventurers stands there, perfectly still, and their eyes lock onto the crazy spectacle playing out in front of them. They gasp in awe as they finally lay eyes on the legendary Great Executioner, sword watching its real power hit them for the very first time. Seasoned veterans stare in pure disbelief, because they've never once seen her multiplication skill balloon to something this massive. Camilla taunts the giant wyvern, sneering that it's just a little bird, as she readies to unleash the final judgment. The onlookers gasp, frozen in disbelief at the sheer chaos she's about to unleash. With a thunderclap roar, her blade slams into the beast's skull, rattling the whole dungeon like it's about to collapse. Wim and the shield units froze with their jaws dropped, shell-shocked by that one-hit kill. Camilla shuts her eyes and lets out a deep breath, exhilaration igniting her face as she savors the sweet afterglow of the fight. She laughs out of breath, adrenaline roaring through her from the enhanced combat, and it throws her straight into pure, untouchable euphoria. The silence snaps in half, then the whole party explodes into cheers, hoisting their weapons high to celebrate their leader's victory. Wim bolts forward in full panic, blurting, "Do you feel any pain, any weird discord in your body?" Camilla lowers her gaze to the worried boy, and her face softens the moment she realizes he actually cares. She snatches his hands, grins at him, and gushes that his buff was insane, while insisting her body feels totally fine. Wim finally exhales like he's been holding his breath this whole time, admitting he was terrified by that tiny but real 5 chance of side effects. Camilla tilts her head, stunned, and asks how he could be freaking out over just a tiny 5 risk. She just gapes at him, listening as he warns that in the worst-case scenario, that buff could have torn a muscle right on the spot. Wim swears those muscle tears hurt like hell, but Camilla just stares at him like he's treating a paper cut as a punchline. He keeps grilling him about bodily discord, totally missing the point that she shrugs off those injuries like they're nothing. Camilla snaps her head back and lets out this huge, unstoppable burst of laughter at how ridiculous he is. With a huge grin, she stared down at the recruit's confusion and decided on the spot that Wim Strauss was an insanely interesting man. Her mind tears through his resume and realizes his labyrinth-level knowledge, razor-sharp search skills, and top-tier grantor abilities are all top grade. She stares at him like prey, eyes sharp with hungry intent, telling herself his past doesn't matter because she wants him for naked libel. Wim gapes in total confusion as she keeps cackling like a maniac, stunned by why she's reacting this way. He starts sweating like crazy, panicking that maybe his buff really is messing with her brain. Under a pale moonlit sky, the Bear Labelle party house towers above the streets, ready to shake with tonight's wild celebration. Frothy mugs slam together with thunderous force while the guild roars out a joyful toast to kick the festivities off in full blast. The guildmaster bursts in, declaring the labyrinth dive a massive win. Maps expanded like crazy. A gold vein struck and then dares everyone to dig in and feast. The hall explodes into a wild storm of jumbled cheers and non-stop joyful screaming. Monica, the mage, lights up with pure excitement and tells Wim she's absolutely thrilled with his performance, calling it flat-out amazing. She leans in, eyes sharp, and asks which enchantment was stamped on Marie's spear, because there's no way that kind of magic comes without serious know-how. Vim shyly cracks that he once dreamed of becoming a mage, so he dug up real mage knowledge first before leveling it up even more. Monica bursts out laughing, and you can tell she's picked up the truth. His technique isn't simple at all. The theory underneath it is seriously complicated. Vim sinks into his own thoughts, spiraling about how to talk to someone he barely knows and frantically guessing what he should do next. A voice suddenly booms from under the table, Vimson, yanking him out of his own spiraling thoughts with a jolt. Bettina bursts onto the scene, introducing herself as part of the search and rescue unit, and she brings her leader, Simon, right along with her. Vim is completely thunderstruck. He looks up and realizes he's standing right in front of Simon San, the legendary commander of the search and rescue unit. Blown away, Vim stammers that he's devoured every single one of Simon's books and articles. Simon starts gushing about the trap he's cooking up, but Bettina snaps at him on the spot. Shut down the study talk at the banquet. Now, a huge, boisterous guy bursts in mid-scolding, cackling his head off and yelling for them to stop listening and just go grab a drink. Bettina snaps her irritation at Mark Sand, pointing out that he always downs way too much to drink. Mark just laughs it off, then tries to shove a drink into the small masked figure's hands, only the poor thing looks like it's seconds from bolting in pure terror. Bettina sweeps the antique stuff aside and steers the convo right back, then squares up to Vim and brings the topic straight back into focus. Simon lit up as he praised Vim's reflection enhancement, straight up admitting he never thought that would happen, and then he pressed, "Did you set out to get that exact result?" Vim quickly shuts down the praise, swearing he was only there to help, claiming the party's skill is what truly made everything work. Simon bursts into hearty laughter, slaps Vim on the shoulder, and declares loud and proud that this kid is absolutely destined for greatness. Vim stood there frozen, cheeks burning, and couldn't figure out how to accept the wild praise his hero just threw at him. Another guy steps up, drowning in regret for what he botched earlier that morning, and then praise on his lips, he highlights how much the boost improved things. He finally admits he's been messing up too, and he pushes hard to make things right after how badly he acted before. Vim lets out a shaky laugh, secretly panicking that his awkwardness is ruining the good mood for everyone. The whole table goes dead quiet for a split second as everyone stares at Vim, and he lets out an awkward laugh just to smash the silence. Vim's mind spirals into full panic, and all he can think is, "Please vanish or I'll end it." Just to dodge the crushing social pressure, the man tells you Hyde Marizan warned him Vim isn't just different. He carries his own unique world inside him. Mark yanks Vim into a headlock out of nowhere. Smirking as he asks if the boy's ready to join Naklibble, Vim gets hit with a wave of kindness, but he stammers like, "Do I really belong in a group this good?" He tries to brush off the praise as nothing but sweet talk, even as every single person at the table is clearly cheering him on for real. A voice whispers that this guild is where Vim can finally stretch his wings and truly take off. Vim stares at them, stunned to see that even with all this chaos swirling around, there's still an undeniable elegance in how they move. A sudden ache crawls into his chest as he wonders, could this be the place he's been searching for all along? Hyde Mary tears into a carrot with her mouth stuffed, chomping loud, while she thanks Vim for his hard work, like she doesn't even have time to swallow. She chomps loudly with a deadpan stare, somehow showing her thanks in that weird, detached way of hers. The others crowd around, amused to the core, watching her slide into her seat and start digging in again today. She rants that there's no meat left, and they tell her it's basically all gone right where her whole complaint was headed. She needles Vim like, "Wow, you're really something, huh?" And when he tries to play it cool, he shoots back, "Drop it, will you?" Vim brushes it off and claims he was only giving support while everyone else steals the show. Then she hits him with, "So that doesn't calm you down." A teammate starts roasting Vim for being clueless, like, "Dude, she's been staring at you, how are you not noticing?" Then Vim just sighs and confirms he's dense again. Between mouthfuls, she insists the guildmaster is absolutely crazy about him head over heels. Vim demanded where Camilla was, and when he got the answer, he realized she was probably stuck in the office, cleaning up the mess from that dive. Realizing this is his shot to finally talk to her, Vim thanks Hyde, Mary's name in his heart, then strides straight off to track down the office. In her office, Camilla sits alone at her desk and pounds out the words on a typewriter, every key clacking like it's got a deadline. She stops mid-track, scans her progress, and prays she can slam the paperwork shut before today ends. She leans back and breathes it in, grinning as she admits the labyrinth dive was a huge win, and Vim absolutely crushed it. She realizes deep down that his contribution just supercharged the whole team. It felt so natural, it was like her power had awakened in her bones, like wings just sprouted from her back. She can't believe it. She just blew past her usual limits, stepping into a zone where everything feels perfectly in sync, and she's on top of her game. A shaky sigh slips out as she savors every last second of that powerful feeling still burning in her memory. She can't stop wondering if that crystal-clear memory of the enhancement could help the team climb even higher, or if it's exactly what they need to train the next level. Thanks to him, she feels like she's finally about to smash straight through the ceiling she's been stuck staring at. A sudden pounding on the door yanks her out of her spiraling thoughts. Vim calls out from the hallway, and Camilla wastes zero time. She swings the door open and tells him to come right in. Vim storms in, then freezes because she's still locked in her armor, and she blurts out, "Wait, what's going on?" Ignoring the awkward tension, Vim's nerves spike as she shoves a stack of documents into the spotlight. He tells them, "This is my official report to the guild about the expedition." Camilla stares at the pile, brow furrowed, and blurts out, "So what's the report about?" Vim figures that after they struck a gold vein and brought in outsiders, a report from his side is absolutely necessary. Camilla buys into his logic, beams at him, and suddenly realizes that his documentation is pure gold. As she reads, the pieces click. His report, stacked with hers, wipes out her problems in one stroke. Yet she's still reeling at just how massive the workload is. Relief crashes over her the moment she realizes she can actually finish her work today. She remembers him telling her he used to hustle with odd jobs back in the Dragon's Wing Guild. Vim humbly admits he took care of everything. That wasn't the big battles, including the accounting. Camilla gapes at him in stunned silence, trying to wrap her head around the fact that he handled everything. She suddenly reads the documents wrong and swears he cooked them up as leverage for salary negotiations. She decides he carried that report home just to flex his worth and make sure he hooks back up with Nacht Label without burning their relationship. She studies him for a second and realizes that his insecurity was just a costume, and he's been planning this move from the very start. Refusing to be outplayed, she steals her mind and decides to pull him into her world no matter what. Vim freezes in confusion, then nervously calls out her name, hoping it'll pull her back into the moment. Camilla wastes no time and offers him a jaw-dropping salary of 500 milk right then, right there. Vim's eyes snap wide in pure confusion, and he blurts out, "Huh." She fires back on the spot, adding a slick extra 2,000 if he joins, then makes it crystal clear. Once the gold deposits are in, he can't back out. Vim is still totally lost. She blurts out the question straight to her, demanding to know what she's even talking about. Camilla sees his confusion as a smokescreen, something he's using to mask his real hand, while he tries to squeeze out the highest price possible. She clenches her teeth, furious with the thought of letting anyone else steal them away, especially not that ridiculous man. She drops a full offer 700 on top of that, plus a 3,000 special joining allowance. She sweetens the deal with a steady 600 milk salary every month, right on par with the high-ranking crew. Then tops it off with performance bonuses too. Staring him down, she presses him for his final thoughts on the proposal. Camilla reads his silence as greed and demands to know if he wants more, while Vim can't shake the feeling that this whole negotiation is just a cruel setup. Ready to lock him in, she doubles his old pay on the spot and pushes him to reveal exactly what he made at Dragon's Wing. Vim blurts out that he's nowhere near making something close to 200, trying to shut her assumption down fast. Camilla misreads his hesitation as a tough negotiation trick and snaps her offer upwards straight to a jaw-dropping 2,000. All flustered and shaking, Vim finally snaps and blurts the truth. His monthly salary was 20 mercs. Camilla freezes in pure disbelief. Her composure snaps as she blurts, "What? At that ridiculously low price?" Vin slumps his gaze in shame, and once again he quietly confirms the same crushing truth. His monthly salary really was 20 merc. Camilla gapes in disbelief, saying that amount is less than what a newbie general store clerk earns. Never mind what an adventurer risks their life for. She gapes at his crushed face, and the horror hits hard when she realizes he's dead serious about those slave wages. Vim quietly blurts that she shouldn't have to push herself just to chase that huge reward, because he'd be thrilled with whatever she can give. He tries to slip out with a quick excuse, but Camilla explodes, yelling at him to wait and give her a moment. She shoves his worth back into the light again, refusing to believe that a dude with power like that could have ever been priced at just 20 mercs. As he storms out, she stares after him, murmuring to herself, why did they trash him like that, and why did they fire him? Vim admits he has no clue why, and Camilla's left standing there, drowning in pure confusion. Meanwhile, deep in the dungeon, the Dragon's Wing party gets slammed with a brutal wake-up call about what kind of party they truly are. They're clawing for survival on the labyrinth's 35th floor, and it's getting desperate fast. Monstrous shadows swallow them whole as they sprint for their lives, and their heavy breathing crashes through the dark corridor. A screaming horde of goblins barrels after them, shrieking louder and closer as the adventurers flee. The leader clenches his teeth, because he truly thought that once Vim was gone, they'd finally coast into an easy, comfortable life as adventurers. He figured that with this new fighter in the mix, their formation would finally click and their wounds would heal in no time. Delusion hits hard. He insists the pain is normal right up until they promote him to A rank, and he's so sure he'll breeze into the deep labyrinth. Reality shatters his dream as he rages at Nicola to heal them now, only to realize the healing output is dangerously, terrifyingly low. Panic flares in him as he whips around to Melis, barking out, "Tell me your Doppelini spell done yet." His eyes bulge with pure terror as the chanting won't stop, and he screams at his mage, begging for answers. Melis snaps out a flame veil at last, blasting up a blazing barrier between her and the monsters. The leader snaps an order, "Fall in and get out right now," while the flames keep the enemy pinned back. The battered party trudges up the dungeon stairs, utterly spent, and their morale is shattered beyond repair. The leader snaps at Nickel again, furious, demanding to know why she still hasn't finished treating their wounds. Nicola offers a shaky apology, gripping her staff tight as she admits, breathless, that she just isn't feeling well. The leader fixes her with a cold, contempt-filled stare as she blurts out an apology for being on edge, and his frustration keeps climbing, second by second. He grits his teeth, slaps on a fake smile, thanks her, then urges everyone to breathe and calm down for just a moment. He tells himself and the whole team that if Nicola comes back, they can claw their way out of this disaster. Panicked, but refusing to quit, he insists they can still turn this around even in their brutal, falling-apart state. He decides they've got to check exactly where they are if they want a way out from the goblins, so he calls for a landmark. He whips his head toward Melis for answers, but she stares back with blank, terrified eyes. Melis stammers blurted, "What landmark do you mean?" And you could tell he was totally lost and completely useless. He panics and fires frantic questions at the rest of the group, asking if anyone knows where they are. Then Sophia cuts in with an apology, admitting she has no clue. He spins to the tank, chasing salvation. Then all he gets back is cold, empty silence. Then it hits them without their old support. They're totally lost, with no direction at all. They screech to a stop and just stare, dumbfounded, at a solid wall right in front of them. The party's stuck in a dead end, and the goblin horde's screeching closes in from right behind them. The leader's face contorts with sheer terror when he finally realizes they've marched straight into a death trap. Too late, he finally realizes they dragged their enemies right into a place they never should have gotten to. A calm, vine-draped house sits bathed in sunlight, quietly waiting to be the launchpad for the Dragon's Wing party. Inside, a member hands her a cup of water for the bedridden comrade, but she shuts it down, then snaps back with the question, "Can I eat instead?" Sophia hovers at Nicola's bedside, her voice trembling as she asks, full of worry, if he's okay. Nicola forces out a shaky smile, tells her friend she's okay, and slips in a quiet, heartfelt thanks. The door bursts open, startling Melis. She chokes on a gasp as Kronos strides into the room. Kronos strides in clutching a small plate, his face set in stone as he heads straight for the bed. He tells Nicola that Sophia peeled some apples for her, then offers the fruit like a sweet little act of care. He carefully feeds her a slice, and for a brief, rare moment, tenderness cuts through the party's chaos. Kronos tells them, "Slow down, take a break and rest," pushing hard to keep everyone's spirits up. He admits to himself that those floor boss injuries still won't heal, and he can't believe how brutally hard the 35th floor has been. Melis fires back with fierce conviction, swearing Kronos isn't the villain, and then she takes the blame for the misjudgment straight onto herself. The group gets swept up in the feeling everyone fights back tears as they open up, sharing a raw, emotional moment together. They huddle in a tight group hug, gripping each other like lifelines as they swear together that they're not stopping now. They huddle up, swear they'll grind even harder, and refuse to let this brutal loss define who they really are. Later in the living room, the air turns ice cold as the story looks back at their nightmare dive into the labyrinth. A flashback spills the truth. This whole plan was just crude brute force, wrecked by awful coordination and clumsy map handling. Chaos crashes into their memories as the fight slams them hard, so they scramble to throw a flashbang just to stay alive. They howl for Sophia to save them, then scramble through the dungeon like their lives depend on it, because they do. Back in the present, they let out a shaky breath and cling to the only win that matters. They weren't wiped out, and somehow they crawled back alive. But doubt slithers in fast when they realize it's hard to believe they're the same beer Ankh group that just took down a floor boss. The elf girl locks eyes on the table, and her suspicion spikes. Something about this whole situation feels deeply wrong. She glances at the chaos on her desk papers, stacked everywhere, then snaps back to Kronos' order to sort out the tasks left behind by that useless predecessor. She still remembers him sneering that the guy in charge was useless, then turning to her and demanding she clean up the whole mess. She agreed to help shoulder the load, then she read those documents, and her face instantly changed. She's left speechless right there. Are the party house repair plans, jaw-dropping detailed reports, and receipts so perfectly organized they look untouchable. She digs up the supply delivery plans, and the more she reads, the more she realizes the paperwork is so detailed it might as well be a full-on thesis. She digs up a map packed with every known level and even monster descriptions, and just like that, she crushes the useless claim with proof that it's all a lie. Pure horror hits her when she realizes the predecessor pulled off all that massive work completely alone. She doubts the whole story that the predecessor wasn't helpful, and her thoughts snap to an image of Vim. Rage surges through her when the truth hits, and she can't stop herself from asking what Kronos, their so-called leader, has been plotting this whole time. A flashback rips open Vim's training nightmare. Kronos doesn't hold back, slamming him with a real sword. Chrono lands a brutal hit and sends Vim flying backward with a sharp, pained cry, because this training doesn't feel like practice at all. It feels like abuse. Chrono looms over the beaten boy, glaring down with icy contempt, while Vim crumples on the floor, writhing in agony. He sneers that Vim can't even pull his weight as a training partner, and the boy quickly drops his gaze and agrees, all submission. A healer flings a healing staff at Vim like it's nothing, snapping that she's not doing it for him, she's only fixing him up. She snaps at him, screaming that it's time he finally proved useful to Kronos, while insults pile on top of his suffering. Vim drops to his knees and spills out a desperate apology, his spirit shattered as he shrinks in fear before them. She crosses her arms and barks at him to get back up the second he feels better. No warmth, no sympathy, just pure demand. Kronos hangs over him like a shadow, squeezing the truth out of his head. No one else will hire him, and he's just a cog that can be swapped out in seconds. He yells that Vim has to be useful, or he's fired, locking in the vicious cycle of abuse that swallowed up every moment Vim spent with him. That brutal nightmare of his dismissal slams back into his mind. Kronos' screaming voice demanding he get out, then roaring the words, "You're fired." He jolts awake as the grip of the old darkness loosens and his brand new surroundings rush into focus. Up on the rooftop, Heidemarie peers at him through a telescope, and it practically breaks her heart. He keeps getting crushed by nightmares about Dragon's Wing. Vim moved into the guest house as a temporary member, but he's shackled by one brutal rule: no adventurers can officially join a new party for 3 whole months. Heidemarie stares at him with a reckless, obsessive grin, absolutely ecstatic that being this close lets her track his every move with ease. She relives all the reckless stuff she used to do, like slipping into the Dragon's Wing base, then feels a wave of relief, because she finally won't have to gamble her life like that again. Now she can keep a close watch on him, with her entire magical toolkit, firing signaling crests and even planting eavesdropping stones to listen in safely. Under the moonlight, she can't stop giggling to herself, soaking up every single move he makes like she owns the night. She obsessively updates volume 105 of her VM's diary, laying down every terrifying detail of his life like nothing could ever slip through. Vim wakes up super early, way before the sun fully climbs into the sky. He kicks off his day with a sprint across the guild grounds, shaking the rust off his body for everything that's coming next. Breakfast at the Nacht Livell restaurant is pure comfort magic. Steaming boiled sausages, crispy, flaky potatoes, and bacon so perfectly seasoned it practically melts in your mouth. He spends his afternoon in calm focus, training magic, juggling his hobbies, and diving deep into monster biology. After getting crushed under non-stop chores at Dragon's Wing, he finally snatched his freedom back, and for the first time, he can carve out time for himself. Hyde Mary slips into his room to watch him nap, gushing over that adorable sleeping face as she scribbles notes. She plugs in his biological stats, clocks him at 129,260 pounds, and logs a razor-thin 0.21 bump from yesterday. Later, she engineers a hallway accident, greets him like it's fate, and drops that legendary line, claiming it's just a coincidence. She skips off with a bright smile after that short meeting, her heart racing as she wonders how many years have stolen the chance to be this close to him again. Her senses suddenly snap because she spots Vim breaking his usual routine and doing something that screams wrong. She spots that he's headed for the courtyard and can't shake the feeling that someone lured him there. Suspicious, she snaps her eavesdropping stone on the spot and leans in to catch every word of what's going on. Her face drains of color as the stone suddenly carries a woman's voice, apologizing for the ungodly early hour. In the courtyard, Vim squares off against Camilla on a massive training grid. Camilla stands locked and loaded in her armor, gripping a wooden sword, and declares, "All right, time to start our session." Hyde Mary leans over the roof edge, holds her breath, and lets out a huge sigh. Turns out it's only Camilla training, not some romantic meetup. Camilla slams her hand down and triggers Enchanted, and a blazing magical aura wraps around her as she kicks off the exercise. Hyde Mary peers through her telescope and spots it. Camilla is trying to use Vim's exact enchantment style for her training. You sprint through the motions as fast as you can, so your body learns them. Slap on a weaker version of the enchantment to guide the rhythm, then let it run wild so the high-speed movement comes out naturally and the spell seals it into muscle memory. Mary hides her grin, watching intently, because she knows this is how you grind your body to its breaking point step by step. Camilla lashes her sword through the air at blinding speed, eyes locked in, landing the drill with ruthless precision. With one brutal strike, she rips through the air and blasts a shockwave that hits like pure nightmare. Hyde Mary breaks into a nervous sweat, and when Camilla effortlessly catches up to the movement in just 1 hour, she blurts out, "You're a monster." Vim stares at the screen with growing nerves, stuck on whether he should jump in and correct her form. He calls out that her arm flings a little too wildly, then tells her to tweak the joint friction so her movement lands perfectly. He pitches a wild reverse enhancement one that shackles his movement instead of powering it up, and they both nod like, "All right, let's try it." Camilla fires off a brutal strike with her new adjustment, her blade snapping forward with razor-precise accuracy and way more power. Vim lets the dust finally settle, then turns to his guildmaster and blurts out what she thinks about the new modification. Overwhelmed by emotion and pure victory, Camilla suddenly drags Vim in and crushes him in a tight, unforgettable hug. Hyde Mary spots the embrace through her telescope and lets out a silent, gut-punching scream of horror at the sheer closeness. Camilla goes wild for Vim, screaming excellent and brilliant at the top of her lungs while she claps non-stop. Then, Hyde Mary watches from afar, stunned and speechless. Hyde Mary rattles herself to calm down, but the second she clocks Camilla and her Vim, jealousy explodes in her chest like, what is she even doing? She tries to convince herself the hug is just emotion, but the second it lands, she bursts into a furious scream, shoving it all away like the intimacy is an accident. Camilla pulled Vim into a tight embrace, smiling warmly, while Hyde Mary just stood there, defeated, chalking the moment up as a brutal -10. Camilla snatches the moment right away, promising to pay Vim to lead Abel through morning exercises every single day. Mark jumps into the recruitment push in the afternoon, then pulls them aside afterward, inviting everyone out for a drink, so he stays locked in with the guild crew. Hyde Mary watches from her window and realizes Camilla is weaving personal connections on purpose boxing in Vim, so he's locked down before he can officially join. As night creeps over the city, the clock tower looms high, cutting through the darkening sky. Hyde Mary sinks into her desk chair alone, pen in hand, staring at the fact that Vim ditched out for drinks with the guys while she's left behind. She crosses her arms, huffs like she's got a point, and swears she's got enough common sense to respect Vim's privacy. She's not about to tail him 24/7. Her imagination instantly betrays her. She's already picturing the guys and every tempting hook the local nightlife could throw her way. In the tavern, Vice Commander Hans hefts a foamy mug and cheers Vim on with a bright, froth-flying toast, welcoming him into the party like he belongs there. The tavern is packed waitresses in scandalous outfits weaving through the crowd, and every guy's grinning ear to ear, soaking up the wild, lively atmosphere. Mary crouches on the other side of the wall, watching them with furious grit in her teeth, because she just realized it's that kind of shop. She tries to catch every whisper through her eavesdropping stone, fighting the roar of the crowd, and seethes because Vim keeps sneaking glances at the girls. At the table, Hans nonchalantly drops the bomb that Vim is from the same city as Heide Marie. Vim snaps back that the connection is legit, then admits he's from Raya Eifelde, like that's insanely far from here. One of the guys blurts out that Vim has been craving this kind of adventure life for ages. Vim nods, telling them he used to devour stories of heroes as a kid, and every single night he dreamed of ending up exactly where he stands right now. Hans remembers Monica saying Vim was laser-focused on becoming a mage. He clocks it instantly. Vim is way more into the fairy tale magician than the big heroic guy from some epic saga. Vim nods hard and blurts out an excited yes, racking his brain to remember the exact story where the character transforms into a princess. He snaps his fingers and blazes a grin as the title clicks back into place. Cinderella all along. Every guild member just freezes in shock, whispering, "Wait, so the awkward kid is actually chatting like a normal person." The table erupts in laughter and warm vibes as the crew clinks drinks, trades stories, and forges a real bond. Heide Marie leaned at the window, watching the sweet moment unfold, her smile soft as she urged him on with a quiet whisper. "Go on, enjoy yourself." She leans in, tells him not to drown himself in drinks or miss his rest. And just like that, her fury melts into a soft, steady affection. Later, Vim storms out of the tavern, then a gang of men hiding in a stone archway suddenly steps out and stops him in his tracks. They march him into a singles area like they own the place. Brushing off every confused look he throws over his shoulder, Vim blurts out that Mark is married, but that big brute just brushes it off with a lazy wave, like it doesn't even matter. One of the men stalls mid-step, like he's scared to drag Vim into this mess. They corner him about his bond with Heide Marie, straight up demanding to know if they're lovers, or if there's something darker brewing between them. Vim spirals into full panic, flapping his hands like crazy as he blurts, "We're not anything just friends, I swear." Heide Marie lurks in the shadows, and when she hears him slam out that vicious denial, her heart drops like a stone. Vim spills the truth. Heide Marie only plays kind to him because she thinks it's her duty to keep him safe. The men keep their eyes locked on Vim, and pure terror floods their faces until every last bit of color drains away. They freeze dead in their tracks, staring in horror as a terrifying presence rises behind the clueless boy. Heide Marie bursts in with a fake grin, slaps on a stiff hey and goes, "Wow, what a coincidence." Vimdi mahns why she's there, and she stammers a flimsy excuse, something about a girls' night out nearby. She whips around fast, telling Vim to get her there while those terrified guys gleefully shove him toward her just to save their own skins. As they head down the road, Heide Marie's mind slams back to that serious talk she has to figure out how to deal with Vim joining the guild. She takes a breath, accepts the advice, and admits to herself that in just one day, everything has gone down. Vim walks right beside her, blurting out that he's never felt this kind of warmth back in the days when he was still in Dragon's Wing. He blushes and tells her it felt like he'd finally stepped into a real circle of friends for the first time. Heide Marie flashes him a soft smile, praises him for a job well done tonight, and lets his happiness sink in. Vim stares at the praise like it doesn't make sense, then blurts, "What are you talking about?" as they stride down the quiet street. Heide Marie keeps her feelings locked up tight, quietly telling herself that she's finally turned into the kind of light that can change his life for the better. In Nakliebel's glittering office, an investigator stands stone still before the guildmaster, and the second he's noticed, the whole room locks in. Dominic steps in and introduces himself as a hard-edged agent from the Adventurers Guild Investigation Unit. Camilla glares at him from behind her desk, suspicious to the core, and demands to know right now what in the world brings him to her sanctuary. Dominic leans in and tells her they need her help, then reveals his unit's been running a secret investigation. Camilla leans in, eyes narrowed, and demands he spell out exactly what's going on. Dominic blurts out the name Wim Strauss and tells everyone he's a former member of the legendary Dragon's Wing party. Camilla takes in the name with a calm stare, then drops a quick, clipped response like it's nothing at all. She flashes a knowing smile out of nowhere, giggling as she tells the investigator he's being ridiculous. Dominic insists her surprise is totally fair, but he still digs his heels in, stubborn as ever, about the boy. Camilla insists, with ironclad logic, that Wim couldn't possibly have beaten a floormaster all by himself on the 97th floor. Dominic fires back, saying the only proof they found on the boss was a wound Wim's machete carved in shattering Kronos' claim. He insists Wim's report is spotless. No missing pieces at all, even if they still can't launch an open investigation. Camilla snaps into focus and yells that they're not just wandering, they're hunting the labyrinth's secrets, and the only proof that counts is hard physical evidence. Dominic admits he can't shut down the rumors, but then drops the truth someone's dragging their feet on Dragon's Wings, getting promoted to A rank, and it's no accident. He scoffs at how 3 people who couldn't even dent the boss are being crowned heroes in Filbron. He admits he's the only one pushing the theory that it was a solo defeat, and yeah, he knows it sounds completely unbelievable. Camilla scans the reports, smirking that they're flawless, but one tiny detail keeps gnawing at her. She tells him Wim purposely left his own achievements out of the records so he wouldn't stand out. She size-ups his modest vibe, then nods like, yeah, him hiding his real power feels totally believable. Seeing how hard the investigator is going, she can't help but relent and agrees to work with their assessment of her newest member. She decides she'll personally test Wim's combat skills because she needs to see his real power for herself. Deep in the ruins, Wim slams on the brakes, locks onto the danger, and spots a pitfall trap 50 meters to the left with deadly precision. Camilla instantly fires back with a blazing warning, barking at the whole group to change course on the spot, no hesitation, no questions. Wim tiptoes forward in silence, replaying the last few months with Nacht Label and wondering if his words are truly landing. He pictures where he stands and breaks it down. His job sits right between the front line and the back line, striking at the gaps to back everyone up. He realizes the teleportation array isn't hidden anymore, and he can't help but stare like the guild really trusts and values someone like him. A rush of gratitude hits him hard because it finally clicks people actually see him, and they're not just letting him exist, they're counting on him. Camilla blurts his name out of nowhere, snapping him right out of his spiraling thoughts. Wim spins around with a jitter in her voice, and she bluntly demands he show off his fighting skills. She calls for a one-on-one fight, and Wim tries to wriggle out of it by blurting that he's already fought countless battles. He stammers out that he mostly hunts small fries and admits he's too weak to pull off a real demonstration. Camilla locks eyes with him, refusing to back down. She demands to know what he can do, because the next labyrinth dive is about to be massive. Wim finally yields, getting it that proving he can handle a fight by himself will put her fears about his safety to rest. He snaps to a looming threat, eyes locking on a massive clay doll, golem charging in from a distance of 140. He pushes for a team-up, pitching the idea that Heidmarie and the others jump in and help him take it down together. Camilla flat out ignores his plea for backup, then cheers like he's got this until he's left with no choice but to swallow his pride and take the fight alone. The closer that massive enemy gets, the more the air turns suffocating for the reluctant adventurer. A towering clay doll golem looms over Wim, and its stone-hard body throws a nightmare shadow straight across him. Hide, Mary gritted her teeth and shoved the screaming Wim ahead, yanking him straight into the monster's path. Wim panics and screams that he could die, while his teammate coolly tells him to stop worrying and just go for it. Heidmarie waves Wim's fear away like it's nothing, then clamps down on his knife tight and tells him death isn't happening. Wim rips away his fear, blade thrusting forward as a fierce glare hardens his face, because he's about to charge into that massive threat all by himself. The rest of the Nacht Label party just hangs back, staring as that towering clay doll golem looms over the little enchanter. Hans whispers doubts to Camilla, insisting that a clay doll is just too deadly for a lone brawl, even if he's special. He makes it crystal clear even a seasoned B-rank warrior would struggle to survive that monster alone. Hans tells them Wim's gift is unreal. He sprinkles tiny, weak enhancements into every muscle and bone, like he's tailoring his body cell by cell. He breaks down how you stack tiny buffs on razor-specific spots like the radius bone, and somehow that adds up into power other granters just can't even compare to. He admits it's theoretically possible, but in the quiet of his own thoughts, he can't help wondering if Camilla actually believes Vim can take down the construct. As Vim readies his spell, Han can't help but grin to himself, because it's painfully obvious his guildmaster is smitten with the boy. Adventurers aren't born, they're made, and it's wild once you snag a real profession, the whole ritual hits and your body gets remade overnight. While most adventurers get bodies boosted tenfold beyond ordinary humans, the grantor profession hits you with a whole different kind of deal. Vim looks utterly drained as the narrator drops the truth. Grantor's power is only a little above normal humans, and their art is brutal to master. Trying to power yourself up with enhancements is a waste of time, and it almost never turns the caster into anything stronger than the usual combat pros. The real win is simple, since they don't undergo any physical change. They're instantly ready to throw down. So yeah, that's why granters are so rare. The clay doll slams its huge stone arm down like a wrecking ball, and Vim has to scramble out of the way with pure panic. Vim snaps on instant enhancements Weimar, and in a blink, his physical power gets hit with a brutal double boost. The golem's fist slams into the ground, shattering everything. Yet Vim rockets into the air in time, vaulting clear of the blast. Self-application cuts out the delay of setting up approval and then routing orders to your teammate. Vim fine-tunes his enhancements on the fly and slams boosts twice onto body parts that can normally handle only one layer of magic. Teeth clenched, he realizes this has to be a quick fight. His magic is too weak, so whatever he pulls off won't last. A shockwave blasts through the air as he tears forward at explosive speed. Vim clambers up the golem, clenching his teeth and bracing for that brutal recoil pain that always hits when strong magic slams into a weak body. He freezes mid-action, eyes bulging in disbelief, because this time no recoil pain hits at all. With fresh courage, he hits instant enhancement drama for a triple surge, praying it's real progress or just pain pushed to the future. He unleashes a brutal strike that shatters the golem's rocky shell with jaw-dropping force. His blade chops through the stone defense as he keeps unleashing non-stop strikes on the massive construct. Vim's boosted power hits like a thunderclap, shattering the golem's arm and blasting stone debris everywhere as the rock monster gets crushed. Between crashing rocks, Vim spots the magical core and fixes his eyes on it like nothing else matters. He drives straight into the core with ruthless precision, and the massive clay doll's body gives way, crumbling and collapsing in an instant. The giant's massive body collapses into a harmless pile of rocks, and it's over in just seconds. Boom, defeat. Dust crawls over the shattered ruins as the lone enchanter tears the massive threat down into rubble. Hans gapes at it, then blurts to Camilla in a shaky rush that he only caught a glimpse like it happened in the blink of an eye. The other guild members are just as baffled, blurting, "Wait, did it end already?" because they only looked away for a second. Hans drills into the details in his head and realizes this just based on raw speed alone. Vim is already sitting among the top in terms of pure feel brawn. Vim rushes out an apology for dragging things out, and Hans immediately panics, furiously denying it as sweat pours off him. Hans hypes him as mind-blowing, straight-up unbelievable, yet Vim totally misreads the shock and thinks it's sarcasm. Then the rest of the party bursts in and their faces light up with shock and total confusion at the wild spectacle they just saw. Camilla locks eyes with him, burning with suspicion, and blurts, "Who are you?" right as Hyde-Marie strolls in and waves hello like it's no big deal. Hyde-Marie starts to insist they're both from the same hometown, but Camilla cuts in fast. She says she doesn't care about his past. The guildmaster leans in and locks eyes with her new recruit, fully admitting, no doubt about it, that the boy in front of her is insanely strong. Vin barrels toward the group with a grin blazing across his face, shouting for them to hide Mary as he crashes back into his party. He jumps right in, saying he took a little reckless risk today and he's genuinely stunned at how good it turned out. But once the adrenaline fades, he suddenly feels his body go totally wobbly, like all his strength just evaporated. Camilla watches him, amused as he fumbles through the moment like a rookie adventurer hunting his very first monster, not some battle-hardened vanguard. She clocks his crushing low self-esteem and realizes it won't budge, even with all his obvious wins, and somehow he's still hiding the fact he can fight. Camilla stares at his real smile and realizes he hasn't been hiding his true strength on purpose. It's guilt that's been holding him back. She's totally thrown off by his behavior, scratching her head like crazy, because his confidence swings wildly from rock solid to nothing at all. Hyde Mary rests a soothing hand on Vim's shoulder and tells him to calm down before his excitement overflows. Vim blurts into a panic, stammering, "Did I say something weird?" As his excitement rockets out of control, mortified by his own outburst, he clamps his hands over his face and stews in pure embarrassment. Crumbling over how he lost control, he hurled a grin at him, calling it pure genius that he'd smashed a clay doll all on his own. Vim rubbed his arms, looking embarrassed, and admitted he could only afford to be reckless because they had his back. He tries to spell out the damage, telling her that every time he goes this reckless, his body pays the price afterward. Hyde Mary barges in mid-self-diagnosis and calls it out. He doesn't look like he's hurting one bit. Vim just freezes, stunned by the fact that after pulling off a triple boost, he should have been wiped out, yet he's not. He gapes at his own hand in pure disbelief, stunned to find his magic power is still there, somehow left after that brutal battle. He starts wondering if he's really getting stronger. But before the thought can finish, the shield squad grabs the plan and starts hoisting him up. The squad rockets him skyward with loud, cheerful, heave-ho shouts, and he thrashes wildly in pure panic. Hyde Mary stands there, smiling warmly as the celebration rages on. And she finally realizes the world is starting to recognize just how great Vim really is. Sunlight pours over the weather-beaten wooden roof of the knacked Libel party house, its old shingles worn smooth by years of wind and rain. Inside the armory, Monica stands alone at the window, staring down into the courtyard as swords and shields ring her in every direction. Simon storms into the room, closes in on her, and asks, all curious, what she's locked onto with that intense focus. Monica practically blurts in excitement, pointing down to the courtyard and urging him to hurry over and see the drama unfolding. In the training grounds, Camilla and Abel smash into each other with brutal weapon strikes, while Vim just watches from the sidelines, soaking it all in. Simon tells her to quit just staring in awe and come train with them, because lately they've been running this same routine every single morning. Monica pauses at the window, panicking that showing up might ruin their already intense moment. Simon just laughs it off, teasing her by saying she's loud enough already, so it won't change a thing. 3 figures huddle in the courtyard, grinning with satisfaction, but drained to the bone after that brutal bout. The sparring match ends, and as the dust finally drifts away, the 2 combatants stand there breathing hard in the open training area. Camilla drops her weapon and announces, "That's it, we're ending the session for today." Abel drops to one knee, drenched in sweat and gasping for air, yet he grits his teeth and refuses to quit. He's still pushing forward. Camilla grabs his attention and reminds him that today's a rest day, because tomorrow he's plunging into the massive exploration of the 98th floor. She snaps her focus to Vim and grills him, asking what the final enhancement adjustment felt like. Abel's grin stretches wide as he erupts in excitement, yelling that it's insanely wonderful and absolutely awesome. Camilla and Abel heap Vim with praise, admitting they never dreamed anyone could match their needs so perfectly. Vim gets flustered when they shower him with praise. He insists he's the one learning from the 2 of them. Camilla bursts into heartfelt gratitude, thanking him for staying with them all this time, despite the fact he's only here as a temporary member. She clenches her fist hard, and yeah, she can't deny it. The upcoming challenge has her buzzing with excitement. Her cheeks flush with pure anticipation, because in this new, stronger version of herself, she can't help but wonder what'll happen the moment she finally goes all in. Vim stands in silence, soaking up the compliments they throw at him and feeling his whole mood soar. He tells them, "For tomorrow to be smooth, you both need a real break right now." He lifts a shaky finger and pitches a fresh idea, something to help them finally relax and heal. He leans in and asks if they want to grab a meal together right now, just to blow off steam. He brings up a steakhouse with mouth-watering food, and both warriors instantly light up, grinning like crazy and nodding hard. Vim stammers through a last check, staring at his invitation like, "Are you sure this won't be a bother?" He abruptly freezes in pure panic, realizing he's got a study session with the reconnaissance team right now. Camilla's smile drops into something stone serious as she tells him to lock in on the reconnaissance meeting, because tomorrow is absolutely too important to mess around. Vim blurts out a desperate apology, then realizes he has to awkwardly undo the invitation he just threw out. Abel wears pure disappointment, Camilla smiles like it hurts, and Vim clocks it instantly. Yeah, he just flat out shut them down. Abel pivots fast to save the vibe, then asks, "Can we keep up the morning training just a little longer?" He shoots Camilla a grateful nod, then storms for the stairs, riding that training session out on pure adrenaline and a huge high. Camilla lets out a heavy sigh and realizes she went too far. So today, she's grabbing a stronger recovery potion. Inside the library, Vim drills his knowledge with the reconnaissance crew, while Camilla keeps watch from outside, her eyes locked on them through the window. The team huddled up to plan their scouting, and they realized why Vim's shots land so clean. She's using tiny bursts of magic power, totally unlike Simon's big wide area approach. Ever since Vim showed up, they all agree he's been leaving everyone better. Especially with how deadly good he is at scouting traps. They stare at the self-control it takes to master skills like that, and just by talking to him, they feel totally fired up. Camilla watches it unfold, and she knows one thing for sure: the crew of Isekai'D can't help but get inspired to level up. Her face hardens into a sharp, icy stare as she realizes, yeah, the Vim kid is downright creepy. She strides down the corridor, frowning as she wonders if that endless, unanimous praise he gets is hiding something sinister. 2 guild members crouch in a hidden corner, whispering like their lives depend on it, trading the newest gossip while constantly scanning for any sneaky eavesdroppers. She blurts out an apology for her loose mouth, then admits she couldn't resist fueling the rumor because she knows damn well it's poison the moment someone else hears it. She snaps that no matter what Hyde suggests, it's still damn hard to hand a grant to someone like Vim when the rest of them busted their tails for it. She compares Vim's new spot to the members who still haven't dove in, and you can practically feel the resentment simmering over how fast he got included. The talk swings to what happens next, because if he shows up, it could spark a whole chain reaction of guilt. The man points out that Isekai'D level is a ruthless battleground. Elite nobles and academy students claw at each other, fighting tooth and nail just to win a spot. While Vim studies quietly nearby, the gossips howl that anyone who got fired by another party should never be allowed in without a full, proper evaluation. They're guessing everyone's opinions will flip after tomorrow's dive, once they see his skills up close with their own eyes. Their whispers cut off the second Camilla steps in. She looms over them like a warning, and silence snaps into place. A guild member rushes to Camilla and says the Adventurers Guild sent someone. Then Camilla snaps, "Show them in." Those heavy doors crash open, and the investigator starts flipping through papers like his life depends on it. While the tension in the room spikes as he gets ready to talk, Dominic thunders through the report, zeroing in on the wild claim that Vim took down a mud golem by himself. He asks Camilla for confirmation, and she snaps it back instantly. Yes, it was absolutely an incredible feat. Dominic pushes harder, grilling for one thing. Does her assessment say Vim could have taken down the 97th floor master all by herself? Camilla clasps her fingers together and shoots down that idea with a blunt, no-bargains denial. She snaps out the truth that it's basically impossible, shutting down the whole idea that he could have taken the boss down all by himself. She admits his speed is top-notch, even in field brawn, calls him a one-of-a-kind grantor, and then she slams the brakes right there. Dominic leans in, hanging on every word, as she confirms that Vim's combat skills stack up almost perfectly with their top candidate core members. She admits things could flip overnight if that boy is still hiding more of his real power. Dominic can't shake the feeling that Vim's hiding something, while Camilla warns him that his one-of-a-kind gift is about to be tested on the next exploration. The investigator rose to go, demanding she report the moment she uncovers what that boy is hiding to the guild right away. He slaps a grim warning onto his demand. Every report hinges on one thing: whether Vim makes it through the plunge alive. The story jumps into a cozy tavern, where Hyde digs in like there's no tomorrow, and the whole vibe feels nothing like that stuffy office. Between mouthfuls, she squeals about how cute Vim looks when he sleeps, and you can practically hear the weight lift off her shoulders. His nightmares are finally gone. A strained smile flickers across the waitress's face as Hyde drops the bomb. Vim's been talking in his sleep now too. The waitress winces with every word, totally rattled by the customer's obsessive rambling and stuck on what to say next. Hyde clocks the waitress's dead-eyed vibe and bluntly slams into the cowwoman, demanding what's really bothering her. The tavern owner steps in fast and tells the waitress she doesn't have to push herself to serve them right this second. He says, voice grim, that a normal tavern party went crawling into the 98th floor last week and just vanished without a trace. Marie freezes mid-bite, and realization hits her face as the crushing news finally lands. Small parties often rush headfirst into the front lines of exploration, acting reckless just to grab achievements before anyone else can. Most of these adventurers don't make it one moment they're there, the next they're corpses, or they vanish without a trace, swallowed whole by the brutal, untamed wilderness. The owner lets out a heavy sigh. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, but every adventurer faces death every single day, so you've got to be ready for that fate. Mary slams both hands on the table, rips the silence apart with a shout, and promises she'll buy the waitress a drink to get her spirits back up. The waitress jolts in surprise at the offer, because the stingy mage is basically never this generous. Mary stands there like a showman and declares this drink is a gift from a future executive candidate, then tells her to just take it. The whole mood flips up in an instant when the waitress slams down a giant tankard of beer, cheering as she clinks it with her benefactor. Mary's eyes widen and she screams in protest as she spots the massive glass, then it hits her. She's been outplayed. She starts tallying the cost with a grumpy huff, muttering that if it's priced like a regular drink, then yeah, she guesses it's fine. Chaos explodes when Marie storms up and accuses the waitress of ripping her off, while the patrons roar with laughter at the cow demon and the little mage. Mary breaks into a big, hearty laugh with the waitress Greta, confessing she hasn't laughed this hard in ages. She snaps back in pure fury, shouting that she's not a stalker at all, her name is Mary, while Greta keeps needling her with teasing nicknames. The vibe snaps to Sirius as Greta confirms Marie's dive into the brutal 98th layer is happening tomorrow. Greta begs her to come back safe with Vim, and Mary just huffs out a smug, humph, acting like survival is already a done deal. As she walks away, the story hits like a punch. 1 second you're laughing, and the next you're gone. Deep in the dungeon, the party erupts in terror because they just plunged way too far, and now they have to scramble for a retreat before it's too late. A horrifying monster crashes the ambush and rips through their ranks, and as everyone screams the names of their dying comrades, the whole line collapses. In the pitch-black dungeon, the floor reeks of blood as the adventurers get butchered one by one until the darkness swallows them all. The sole survivor bolts through the stone corridors, shredding her breath into wild, ragged gasps as terror claws at her mind. She slinks into a dark corner, shaking out of control as she desperately tries to vanish from the nightmare stalking her. A grotesque shadow, packed with countless eyes, creeps up behind the unsuspecting girl, and its eerie chirping slams the life right out of her. The monster drops on its final target and ruthlessly snuffs out every last breath of the doomed party. A towering clock tower looms against the blazing sky, and its ringing in the start of a huge day the whole city will never forget. A massive parade of Nacht Liebel members pounds across the cobblestone streets, their banners snapping high above the tight, disciplined ranks. The townspeople swarm the streets and hang from every window, screaming their heads off as they cheer for their heroes, Hans and Camilla, begging them to bring their absolute best. Vimwok slips in among the hulking armored figures, shrinking into the crowd, while anxiety gnaws at him as he desperately tries to disappear. The streets thrum like a full-on festival as the city kicks off the guild's massive investigation. Vim shoots nervous glances at the crowd, wondering right in his head if everyone else is staring at this crazy show too. He halts mid-sentence, guilt stabbing his chest as he realizes he's still calling his old Dragon's Wing party members everyone. He frets over whether their wounds have finally healed because days have gone by and not a single word about them has reached him. He shakes his head and drives the truth into his skull. He's a member of Nacht Liebel, at least for now. He shuts down the useless ghosts of the past and tunes everything out, because all he can hear now are the cheers roaring around him. Bystanders gawk in disbelief at the operation's massive scale. Stunned that the guild actually cranked up the entire roster, every one of the 122 members. Two guys in the crowd lean in, whispering like secrets, trading rumors that a mysterious provisional member is about to slip into the elite ranks. One man blurts out the recruit's real identity with a stunned look. He's the Granta magician, the one Dragon's Wing just fired. People whisper that he's turned into the talk of every adventurer's camp, and rumors say he's ridiculously capable, like superhuman level. The man rakes his fingers through his hair in pure frustration, trying over and over to remember the exact name of that rumored magician, and coming up empty every time. Inside the guild hall, Camilla steps up to the gathered troops and fires them up, hammering it into the front-line party that it's their job to charge straight into danger first. She fires back a warning. There's a high chance they'll run straight into the floor master, and those traps don't just hurt. They slaughter fresh newcomers without mercy. Her voice slices through the air, promising that once those deadly dangers are crushed, the ultimate prize awaits conquering the labyrinth itself. In that massive cathedral-like hall, rows of armed adventurers stand stone still, holding their breath as they await their leader's command. Camilla declares this mission is nothing like the others, because it's a real-life gamble, and if they slip up, their lives vanish in the unknown depths. She orders them to steel themselves. Every single member has to drop their fears and toss their wills aside. She screams at them to throw their own lives away, because only by sacrificing for their honor, their treasure, and the comrades standing right beside them can they survive. Every single member of the guild snaps their weapons up together, unleashing a thunderous roar as they chant in wild rhythm, Nacht libel of Feel Braun, filled with deafening resolve. Vim finally snaps into the chant with a late, awkward yell, and he looks totally lost in the middle of those battle-hardened warriors. He breaks into a cold sweat the second he realizes his timing was off, and now he's stuck feeling awkward like everyone else's got all this intensity. While his own fire's running low, Hydemary shoots him a knowing glance, clocking every flicker of nervousness as he scrambles to steady himself. The story says the very first layer of the labyrinth sits under the guild, and they're going to push forward using the safest route they can find. The 98th floor explodes open into a giant wild nature cavern, massive rocky cliffs rising up everywhere, with strange plants crawling across every corner. Vim stared up in stunned awe, because the space was so insanely vertical it felt like the ceiling was impossible to reach. He fires up in his mind, locks in his job in the frontline unit, boost the whole squad with upgrades, and then jump in to scout the area when the situation calls for it. The moment it hits him, the weight of responsibility crushes his chest, because if he drags his feet, the entire operation grinds to a halt. Abel clocked the boy's panic and asked in a gentle voice whether the pale kid was scared about the mission. Vim tries to act like he's fine, then immediately he pukes, and Abel wastes no time calling him out. "Yeah, you're definitely throwing up." Abel soothes him by pointing out his flawless training record, and Vim steadies his nerves by silently reciting his mind-bending code. Vim suddenly tells Abel to trust him too, and the swordsman's completely thrown off like the request came out of nowhere. Abel's cheeks flare with a fierce blush as he blurts out that he'll protect Vim no matter what, even if it means taking on a floor boss. He instantly regrets the outburst, slams his hands over his face, and blurts out apologies for something so painfully cheesy. Abel spirals with panic, wondering if he just went too far, while Vim stares on, utterly stunned by the sudden turn. He can't help but wonder, are they more than just training partners now, since they talk so casually every single day? Vim snaps himself out of that spiraling thought cloud by softly calling his own name. Desperate to pull his attention back to the moment, Vim blurts out an awkward stammer, trying to invite Abel out for a meal next time, and then he's left blushing hard, mortified at how bold he just sounded. From the dungeon entrance, a weird, warm feeling seems to pour out. Or maybe it's just the wind screaming through the stone. Vin jolts back in pure panic when a bug skitters by, then blurts that he starts hearing weird, hallucinatory sounds the second he steps into the labyrinth. Abel grins and jumps right into it, snapping his orders so the front team locks into the bid-end formation. The crew strides into the cavernous doorway of the 98th floor, and the moment they step in, strange plants and jagged rocky ground surround them. Vim slams his holographic interface to life, and it lights up with an enemy nearby pinpointing a razor-tight Behydra head. He tears through the creature's data and realizes this species can't live without fresh water nearby. As Vim stares at the damp walls and those bird-like creatures, he immediately clocks it. This place is basically screaming that water veins are buried somewhere nearby. Vim barked sharp tactical orders, shouting at Bettina to guard the left side while he seized the right and slipped underground to scout. He warns the mapmaker, telling him to watch his step because the road they're crossing keeps slipping downhill inch by inch. The teammate nods, accepts the advice, and locks in on the slope as the whole group inches forward, careful with every step. Vim's fingers rip across his holographic interface, snapping through the data with pure, practiced speed. He mumbles a tangle of coordinates under his breath, and his mind sprints through grid math, mapping every inch like it's a race against time. Abel stares in disbelief as he realizes Vim is running wild with hypotheses and verifications way beyond anything he was ever told to do. Vim locks onto the glowing map, then drags his finger through the lines, diving deeper and deeper into the structure data. He crunches the numbers and realizes that his insanely precise map could sell for several times more because he knows exactly how valuable his work really is. Panic slams into him when he starts overthinking his magic, and his mind spirals into a relentless loop of, "This is bad." The pressure in his head turns real, his legs fold, he drops to all fours, and he vomits hard across the dungeon floor. One of his teammates tells Vim to stay hydrated, but Vim shrugs it off and insists everything's running perfectly because we've got everyone pulling together. He gets cut off by a notification. The leader is calling you, and it snaps him out of his spiral of self-doubt. Camilla nods at his answer, and his estimate pays off. She's sure a giant hole is right ahead because she trusts his reasoning completely. She waves them over to a better place, pushing them to lock in on the strategy and read the situation for real. The crew crowds around a map, trading quick looks as they agree if they follow that watery smell, it can only lead to a lake or a rushing river ahead. Camilla grabs Vim and demands he test the water's quality because if it checks out, they'll refill their supplies and press on. Vim checks the water and confirms it's safe, pointing to a rare butterfly that only survives in spotless, clean conditions. Camilla takes the report with a satisfied grin, then cuts straight through the moment. That's the briefing, unless someone's got something else to add. Vin keeps fidgeting next to Abel, trembling with a worry he's terrified to finally say out loud. Abel clocks the unease in his face and leans in, asking straight up if something's still wrong. Camilla barks, "Just say it," while Vim counts down in shaky terror, stammering until the words finally rip out of him. Vim spots a weird topographical glitch right where the route suddenly flips from downhill to a faint uphill climb. Camilla narrows her eyes, weighing the threat. Was this just natural terrain, or a trap built to swallow them whole? Vim lays out the nightmare scenario. If this uphill trend keeps going, the water will start rushing in and trapping them in place. He lays out a nightmare trapped in the labyrinth and getting slammed by the boss while their back is fully underwater. The soldiers mutter with growing dread. Vim's panic spikes, and he blurts out an apology for raising the mirror, like, what if that what-if scenario is real? He blurts out an apology for throwing everyone into panic, then hides back inside his own shell of insecurity. Camilla lets out a heavy sigh and asks, with real seriousness, how many times they're going to keep repeating this same gut-punch exchange of self-doubt. She tells him, don't hold back, go all in, and insists that his introspective side is exactly what's going to fuel his growth. She gives him a warm smile and tells him, with total certainty, that he can live his life his way too. Vim's cheeks flare red as she blushes hard, then mumbles out a heartfelt thank you for accepting her and for the sweet words she heard. After that, the investigation runs like a dream, until the narrator reports one thing loud and clear. The rest of the mission stays monster-free, with no big threats ever showing up. Camilla scans the whole situation and flashes a grin. This labyrinth dive is already locked in to bring profit, and it's staying in the green. She adds that they unearthed multiple gold veins too, and that sealed it, the mission was a financial win. She points it out. Everything's running so smooth, it starts to make them suspicious. She blurts out that this is way too perfect and wonders if someone's baiting them, pulling them deeper into the labyrinth. Even with all the doubts swirling, she insists they've already pulled off real results and locks in the dive for exactly 1 week from now. She cuts in and says, no turning back now. Even as a nagging worry about the slope keeps tapping at the back of her mind, she refuses to let fear decide her fate, swearing it's impossible to turn back just because it feels unnatural. And then she reminds everyone, sharp as a knife, that they're nacked Libo. She warns them that if they head back right now, they'll end up drawing dark maps of the land like it's already doomed them. Another member nods in grim agreement, spelling out without sugarcoating what really counts as Felbrun's dark side. Camilla tells us that dark maps get forged by adventurers who keep sending their findings right up until the second they die. She points out that with the cost of living so brutal, these maps get passed around for ridiculously high prices. She warns that if they walk away before the investigation is finished, the thirst for those dark maps will suddenly blow up on the market. She insists, no matter what, that no one ever walks away from a massive investigation halfway through. She declares they take pride in dodging trouble like that, and vows the guild will keep pushing for pure excellence. To deal with it, she blasts out the plan. An elite, advanced team is being formed, and they're charging forward. She breaks it down straight with the risks on the table. This is the smartest move to cut the danger down as low as it can go. She hypes them up, shouting that they're only a little farther from cracking into the Great Hall. The guild members huddle in tense whispers, trying to guess who'll be picked for that brutal, dangerous job. They all agree that this kind of mission has to be handled by Isekai'D's elite. No one else could pull it off. A huge screen flashes the message: 6 people are officially in the advanced team. 3 members kick things off: Monica the mage, Abel the tank, and Hans the swordsman. The last 3 names hit the page: Vim the granter, Hyde Mary the sage, and Bettina the mage. Beneath the Isekai'D banner, a massive investigation of the 98th floor kicks off in the dead of night inside a dark, mysterious cavern. 6 fighters band together as an advance party, hunting for water sources and surging toward the Great Hall with their hopes blazing. Vim can't even explain it, but somehow he's been thrown into this elite squad. Now he's freaking out, wondering what in the world he's doing among adventurers this capable. A spellbound chant cuts through the air as the enchanted spell snaps to life, exploding into action the moment it's activated. The party members snap to attention, eyes wide, spinning in circles as the magic finally latches on. They realize their bodies feel insanely light in an instant, and they can't help but stare because something powerful just kicked their strength into overdrive. Monica tells them she slapped on a speed boost to reach the Great Hall fast, and then she promises extra combat buffs if things get ugly. With magic finally in her hands, Monica surges forward and grabs Vim's hands, even as he blushes and awkwardly tries to brush off her overwhelming gratitude. Marie bursts into the scene with jealous fury, yelling at Monica to back off and quit clinging to him. Playing dumb, Monica cuts in like nothing's wrong, sweet-talking Marie and tossing in that cute Chon onto her name. Marie snaps, ordering Vim to drop the honorific and quit playing so buddy-buddy with her. Monica pouts with a teasing grin, asking if they're not really friends, while Marie glares daggers at her chest. Storming in like she means it, Marie declares them enemies, dials Monica and fires off Cowwoman B, leaving the mage absolutely baffled by that sharp insult. The leaders shot them sharp smiles, thanking them with sarcasm for getting along, then praised the girls' patience while the girls kept bickering like it was a sport. On the double, the leader turns serious and confirms the route with Bettina because even though it's their first team mission, he's betting on her skills with full confidence. She confirms the plan: race the shortest route, dodge every fight you can, and steer clear of combat whenever possible. Bettina swears she'll give it her all, but she asks Vim for recon help if he's got the capacity. That insane speed crushes Vim. He stumbles, throws up all over the floor, and one of his teammates rushes over with water to help him breathe through it. As the chaos explodes around him, the leader lets out a tired sigh, like he's more of a teacher herding unruly kids than a real commander. Enormous frogs sit stone still as the party barrels past their nesting grounds. Racing at blinding speed, the leader can't help but wonder if all this insane pace is powered by Vim's enhancement. He clocks it no matter how fast they're flying. Not a single one looks worn out, which means they're about to slam into the Great Hall in record time. A dark silhouette flickers in the distance. The leader shouts "Monster" and slams them into a hard right turn. Before he can even finish his guess, the scout slams in right away and calls it a trap. She puts Vim's recon data into action, using the trap spotting techniques she learned straight from it. When he passed over the data, she instantly froze because the mountain of information he dumped in her hands was absolutely staggering. After crunching the trap data, she's certain of one thing: this showdown's coming, because that monster is already up ahead, waiting. From the pitch black, a colossal scaled monster slams into the scene, and the leader is yanked straight into a fight on the spot. The leader nimbly dodges the monster's smash, slipping right under its massive body like a shadow. His blade slams into the creature's hide, but he winces instantly. Those scales are rock hard and they won't give. Monica strides forward with razor-sharp confidence, orders the leader to step back, and declares the monster is hers. Vim panics and blurts for everyone to slam the brakes, terrified she'll push the output too far. Monica snaps to attention as her staff starts cranking up a massive magical charge, ready to blow. A swarm of magical creatures erupts around her, chattering like mad as they ready themselves for launch. Monica's eyes spark with raw power as she officially signs off on Vim's enhancement integration, hammering the interface like his life depends on it. Vim wildly tweaks the speed reduction and range to squeeze the spell in safely. With the settings locked in, Monica hurls the enchanted spell with everything she's got. She rips off the Dunning-Kruger electric shot, lining it up perfectly as it blasts straight into the beast. A storm of magical missiles crashes into the monster, detonating in a non-stop roar of explosions. The creature gets wiped out by non-stop impact, then crumples as the magical firepower rains down and overwhelms it. The massive creature lets out a soul-crushing shriek as a storm of magical blasts rips through its defenses, and you can tell right then that it's finished for good. One teammate blurts out that every single shot landed dead on target, and the other guy can't even process it, just stares, stunned by how flawless it was. Monica stares at the results, grinning as she explains how she fine-tuned her spell's range to pull off that perfect razor-precise hit. Vim turns around and the leader snaps the question, can he enchant a weapon, and Vim answers instantly. Swordsman Hans gives the official nod and signals he's ready to throw Vim into battle, so everyone can finally see what his upgrades can do. Han demands more strength and harder blade, no extra weight, and Vim doesn't hesitate, blasting the enchanted spell into action to make it happen. With his blade blazing with magical power, Han strides forward, grinning through the fear as he steps up to smash the last of the threat. He declares he'll track the enemy to the ends of the earth, clutches his enchanted weapon in a death grip, and readies himself to strike. Hans unleashes a brutal technique, snaps an age at the geary crosscut, and finishes the job for good. With a strike that feels way too easy, the hit lands cleanly. Hans's eyes widen, he sucks in a breath, and his blade seems to cut through the target like it's nothing. While everyone else erupts in cheers for the victory, Hans stands frozen, staring at his weapon, sweat pouring down his face as confusion and panic crash over him. He snaps to the truth, this sharpness is wrong, like he's slicing right through thin air, all because Vim's enchantment is doing the impossible. A teammate can't stop praising the accomplishment, saying it's exactly why Camilla holds Vim's abilities in such high esteem. Suddenly, a fierce shout erupts, warning that another enemy is dropping down on them from right above. A grotesque, fish-like horror crashes down on them out of nowhere, and the party members are left staring in stunned silence at the ambush. Reacting on the spot, the Draymar spell snaps into action, delivering a triple surge to blast through the surprise attack. The huge monster yanks its jaws wide to swallow them whole, but Vim is already in the air sword gripped tight, ready to crash the attack head-on. Vim whips his enchanted blade in a razor, straight slash across the creature's body, biting deep into its scaly hide. The monster gets split clean in half. Its massive body collapses apart, while Vim drops down and lands safely on the ground. Hans thanks Vim and hypes up his insane performance, saying the outcome was exactly what he had predicted. Vim chuckles nervously, trying to shrug the whole thing off and claim it only looked impressive because the enemy was nothing but small fry. Hans squints at the description, skeptical as hell, insisting the creature looks like some brand new species and that there's no way it's weak. A brutal rumble rolls through the cavern as the broken remnants of the fight slump onto the floor. Through the wreckage, a locket sits cracked open, and inside it there's a sweet portrait of a young girl smiling like she's still waiting. The group finally clicks. These brutal, tragic relics are tied to an adventurer who dove into the dungeon ahead of them. Han claims they don't have time to dig graves, but he still demands they stop and say prayers for the fallen. Vim watches the whole crew, stunned that each person thinks and moves on their own, yet somehow they sync up perfectly for smooth travel and even deadlier battles. While they pray side by side, he can't help but think his old party, Dragon's Wing, never once managed to move like this, not even close. That experience locks in his realization he didn't just tag along, he's really landed in an amazing, unstoppable party. They waste zero time and surge forward, sprinting through the rocky cavern corridors. They burst out of the tunnel, and Vim whips his gaze across the endless open land laid out in front of them. The party finally reaches their destination, grips the shield of Nachtliebel tight, and stares out over the breathtaking landscape below. They crowd the edge of a massive underground lake, dipping their eyes into the water and scanning every corner of the area like they're hunting something. Hans grins and confirms it just like Vim predicted. They've tracked down the Great Hall, and the water quality checks out as safe. He praises Vim's work once more, then declares that this spot is exactly what the 98th floor needs as its next relay point. The whole team erupts in celebration, and they chant Vim's name because without his crucial move, the mission never would have pulled off this massive win. Hans tries to soak in a heartfelt moment of gratitude, but Vim trips over his words and insists he's only there to help. Marie cuts in, asks why he keeps getting off on self-deprecation, and tells him to just take the compliment for once. Vim tries to defend himself, voice low, insisting that he doesn't actually enjoy tearing himself down. Marie fires back with sharp sarcasm, mocking his logic by claiming she must be an idiot for inviting a fired adventurer to an A-rank party just to sabotage her own organization. Vim nods fast, like she's right, fully backing Hyde Marie's assessment. Abel whips around and flashes him a calming smile, calling him respectfully Vim-san. Hunched by the underground shore, Abel brushes off Vim's gratitude with a casual, "You're welcome." Vim halts mid-step, drinking in the calm and the crushing weight of the underground lake. Once the area was cleared and secure, the expedition's main force finally thundered in to team up with the advanced crew. They decide the water levels point to a tiny chance of any floor traps lurking in the Great Hall. The commanders rally the troops, then shower everyone with praise for a mission nailed to perfection. They officially marked the Great Hall as their relay stop, then decided to camp there for the night. Tents snap open beneath those towering rock giants as the group finally collapses into rest under the cavern sky. Vim sits alone outside his tent, staring into the dark, unable to sleep because the terrain feels wrong in his bones. He nervously rips through his notes, desperate to decode the wild geographical data he gathered. He remembers how the slope kept wobbling, dropping for a beat, then climbing back up until it finally spat him out right at that hole. He scans the darkness overhead and realizes the ceiling shoots up forever, like an endless wasteland of emptiness. Panic spikes in him the moment he realizes that a massive wave of water is about to slam shut their escape route and trap them for good. He imagines the room going airborne, and suddenly the only ending left is drowning with zero way out. Breathing through the panic, he forces himself to remember no water traps were found, and they charted every route. He tucks himself into his blanket and tries to convince his own mind that fretting over a sudden flood is pointless and makes no sense. Right as he's about to drift off, a sudden splash of wet droplets smacks his face and jolts him awake. He cranes his neck in pure terror, and then he realizes rain is blasting down from the cavern ceiling. Panicked out of his mind, he screams for everyone to wake up right now, because the labyrinth is flooding from the inside. He gapes at the pouring rain, stunned out of his mind, unable to wrap his head around this total, shocking disaster that came out of nowhere. Panic explodes among the adventurers as they yell that this weather can't be real, demanding answers while rain pours inside the labyrinth because they're terrified it's some kind of trap. Vim stands frozen in the pounding rain, trembling as questions claw at him who saw this disaster coming, and what in the world is happening. The truth hits them hard as the knight fixes his gaze on the flooded path, then realizes the water is climbing fast, racing higher by the second. Panic slams into the soldier's chest as he yells that the road is jammed shut and there's no turning back now. The commander immediately barks at everyone to stay calm and dig in. Then the grim news hits: the southern passage is already underwater. He lays out their desperate game plan, saying that if this goes full nightmare, they'll have to hunt for an escape route and still gear up to fight the floor boss. Camilla strides forward with a ferocious glare, roaring for Isekai'D to get ready, then proving they're the ones who can survive this crisis. The squad clenches their weapons and braces hard, ready for what's next as the first shock of that sudden flood finally starts to fade. As the call for action hits, the whole crew erupts in one loud shout, boom. Their morale shoots right back up from the floor. Vim watches the transformation, jaw dropped, and realizes that turning fear into resolve is exactly what makes Nacht Libel truly unstoppable. Feeling powered up by their strength, he smacks his own cheeks and hypes himself into action, ready to do his part too, even if it means getting fired up for it. Scouts burst back from every direction, shouting that the west, south, and east passages are clean. Right now, no weird stuff at all. The radar operator locks eyes with his screen, sweat beading up as he fights to decode the readings, while everything around him spirals into chaos. He snaps his head up in pure terror and screams that something's barreling toward them from the north passage. He tells her he can't see the full picture yet, but the floor boss might be creeping closer right now. The commander snaps into action the second Vim's enhancement magic hits, shouting for the rearguard to fire right away. The mages and archers snap into formation, their faces set with grit, screaming that they're ready to unleash the volley. Vim clenched his focus, locking onto the brutal mental math he needed to fire off the enhancement spell, even while the rain screamed and pulled his attention away. He snaps his magic on casting Vibrate, and Harden turning every incoming hit into something far deadlier. Magical energy surged outward in roaring waves, wrapping the rear guard's ready spells and weapons in its glow. A hulking, writhing monster finally crawls into view from the darkness, and someone yells that its prey is huge and almost impossible to spot. The mages hurl the Thunderstorm Gavita Spear, and VIM supercharges it, tuning the hardness, the vibration, and the air resistance so it hits with brutal force. Enhanced magical spears scream through the cavern air, crackling with electricity as they tear straight toward the dark. A deafening blast rips into the far wall, and the whole cavern lights up like daylight from the sheer impact. Even after that direct hit, the scout screams that the target isn't down and that the readings are shifting, revealing a whole swarm of tentacles. A monstrous shadow claws its way through the smoke, and someone screams that it's charging straight at them. With a thunderous roar, the shield squad surges to the front line and slams their giant shields down to stop the oncoming charge. Vim dashes in at the last second, yelling Enchanted, as he slaps a protective buff on the front line right before the clash hits. Shields flare with a reflected spell, snapping the tentacles back as they crash into them, with bone-crushing force. Behind his shield, the tank leader erupts into a maniacal laugh, daring the monster to charge them again and again. The commander barks an order to Hyde Marie to light up the targets so they can finally see what they're fighting, and she snaps into action like she's been waiting for it. She blasts the flasher spell and shrieks, "I can see its body," as searing light crashes into the cavern. Every adventurer's breath catches at once as the blinding light tears the veil, showing the full, terrifying size of the monstrosity looming over them. A gigantic, fleshy nightmare hangs from the ceiling, glaring down with one massive eye while its tentacles thrash and writhe in place. Its grotesque appendages writhe and coil through the air, spraying slime and water down onto the flooded floor below. Soldiers gawk in terror, hands shaking as they whisper that this creature can't possibly be real because it's way too huge to exist. The commander snaps his attention to Vim, confirming he's the floor boss, but pressing him for anything he knows about what it actually is. Vim shot back that it didn't match a single floor bus he'd seen before, saying it looked less like a machine and more like a tiny monster with the vibe of a sea cow. Camilla spots that the passage is still connected and shoots off a theory if it's a sea cow type, then fire should smash right through it. Sensing the opening, the command snaps to the rearguard to switch tactics on the spot and unleash fire magic right away. Monica kicks off the magical bombardment, shrieking the incantation as a blazing fireball rockets toward the beast dangling overhead. Fueling the inferno, a male mage bellows through sheer strain, then blasts out a raging flamethrower torrent. Hyde Marie barrels into the assault, slinging scorching wind so the flames roar higher and the heat sinks deep into the monster's flesh. Fire magic crashes into that grotesque tangle of tentacles, swallowing the creature in a violent burst of blazing light and scorching heat. The monster is thrown into agony as searing flames chew through its body, and its massive eye bulges wide from the brutal shock of the attack. When the creature flinched back, the soldiers erupted into cheers because their fire-based plan was absolutely working. Camilla barks non-stop orders, slamming the front line to link up with the shield squad, hold the line against those tentacles while they zero in on the main body. She orders the rearguard to link up too, making it crystal clear they've got to intercept every attack and hit back on their own to keep the pressure crushing. The troops snap into formation with a thunderous, disciplined shout, then move instantly, no hesitation, to carry out the whole complicated maneuver. Camilla orders Vim to save his strength, burn the upgrades only for the shield squad, because their defense comes first, no exceptions. Shield squad's leader flashes a fearless grin behind his barrier, then calls to Vim like, "All right, time to fire up and carry out our part of the plan." Vim locks eyes with him, fires back with fierce conviction, and pours his magic into the moment like he's ready to take him head-on. With the rearguard's magic lighting up the way, the frontline fighters explode forward and slam into the openings in perfect, jaw-dropping synchronization. They strike with deadly hit and run precision, carving into the behemoth's limbs and bit by bit draining every last ounce of its strength. Vim watches the battle unfold, stunned by how perfectly everyone moves, like he's seeing a grandmaster lay down chess moves with ruthless precision. He realizes that even with them deep in enemy territory and getting slammed by heavy rain, they're still completely crushing the fight. Against all odds, Nactlibble owns the tactical edge, tearing apart the floor boss piece by piece. Vim's jaw drops at the sheer power of a top-tier party. He's in awe as they bulldoze a boss to the edge on their very first encounter. Just as his thoughts start to spiral, Camilla suddenly blurts his name, snapping his attention straight to the front. He whips around to stare at her, stunned by the sudden laser focus and the fierce fire burning in her eyes. Camilla snaps at him to go all out, no limits, then announces she's stepping in herself to end this fight right now. She flashes a confident smirk and tells him she's counting on him just like always to power everything she needs. Vim snaps into action and hurls his magic energy into the spell, blasting it with maximum power to grant her wish. Camilla formally agrees out loud, granting Vim's enchantment the green light. Then the exact ICSA protocol kicks into gear as the contract gets activated. The surrounding soldiers explode in cheers and gasps as they see their captain stepping onto the battlefield himself. Vim snaps his magic into perfect sync with Camilla's wavelength, then casts Enchanted to give her exactly the power boost her fighting style demands. Camilla thrusts her sword up, and a gigantic wave of blazing light explodes from it, flooding the dark cavern while she stands there, poised to unleash everything. The squad leaders blast orders for everyone to back off and stay out of the way, clearing the whole area so their captain can unleash a brutal, devastating attack. The monster senses the danger closing in and unleashes a bone-rattling, ear-splitting roar as it braces to fight back. Vim stares on, knowing bosses always pull out secret trump cards, and praying their plan to end it in one brutal hit actually works. Camilla grins like a threat, already set on smashing the enemy with one brutal strike before it even gets the chance to spill its secret power. With her power blazing at full strength, she announces it's time to prove their training, and then she launches herself forward. A flashback shows a lone fighter hammering away at grueling training beneath the moonlight a few years back. Camilla rips a massive steel roller across the stone courtyard, muscles screaming at the edge of breaking. She grinds herself to the edge, and with every step she conquers, toughing out her physical limits and mastering magic. She can't help but feel proud of how far she's pushed. With a brutal heave, she hauls the training gear across the floor, snarling at the crushing weight and refusing to quit. After finishing her 1022nd repetition, despair crashes over her because the result feels exactly like it did last time. Her face contorts in pure anguish as she finally realizes all that brutal effort got her nowhere. Frustration flares up and she snaps off a curse at the stalled training that's been trapping her. She decides that if she can't level up as a warrior, then she's going all in, throwing her whole heart into leading and commanding everyone else. She swallows the crushing truth, resigning herself to the death of her warrior spirit until one fateful moment explodes everything. Right now, the troops erupt into wild cheers as their captain strides onto the battlefield, ready to end this fight for good. As she charges in, Camilla realizes every time Vim hits his enhancement, the magic shifts like it's changing shape with each repeat. She feels the power sharpen and sink deeper into her bones, flooding her muscles with raw strength. This enhancement lights a brand new spark of hope in her, ripping through the limits she swore were untouchable. She plants her feet in front of the monstrous threat, ready to unleash her freshly restored power and crush it. With a soft smile, she realizes Vim probably has zero clue what he's really done for her. Vim keeps watch over her, totally oblivious to the deep, burning gratitude she's holding for his help. She replays the instant their paths collided, and she can feel that connection flipping her whole destiny overnight. Her eyes flash with fierce intensity as she realizes his magic has reignited her warrior spirit, flooding her with pure exhilaration. She unleashes her ultimate technique, calls out Kaya Jangiri, and orders the power to explode into the world. A brutal shockwave erupts outward the moment she unleashes her energy. A teammate stares in sickening disbelief, realizing the energy bursting from him is way beyond anything she ever showed in the Wyvern battle. Vim spots the soaring ceiling and realizes it lets the captain unleash her abilities with zero space limits. Camilla rockets into the sky, blasting past the target and soaring higher with jaw-dropping speed. She snaps back mid-air, sword lifted high, ready to smash down with a catastrophic hit. Staring at how weightless she feels, she finally realizes her power is way bigger than she ever dreamed. Wrapped in pure bliss, she tightens her grip and sets her sights on the one moment, then unleashes her full fury. Soldiers shriek, barking everyone back, even farther, terrified they'll get caught in the blast radius. The monster stays locked in place, stunned because it can't keep up with the brutal speed of the incoming strike. Camilla rockets down hard, yelling the first half of her technique, Kyogen. She powers through the Giri, slicing straight down with a beam of pure light that tears the monster apart. The massive beast tore itself in two like it was nothing, and Vim froze, staring in shock at the sheer, crushing power on display. Camilla touches down lightly on the water, and the monster's split halves slam into it behind her. A deep, rattling hum rolls through the air as the giant corpse sinks into the lake. The radar operator suddenly erupts into a scream, "It's not over!" And that sudden warning blows up the calm like it never existed. He snaps that the target's biological response is still alive and firing, and Simon is already charging ahead. The command to keep hammering rings hits the air, and the mages immediately fire off a crushing follow-up volley. A hailstorm of magical blasts pounds the creature's remains, hammering it into nothing to make sure it can't come back. The operator stares at his screen, waits for any sign, then finally confirms it total silence, and he declares their victory. The whole army explodes into a thunderous cheer, roaring in celebration of their hard-fought victory. They slam into a wild embrace and scream in total disbelief, because somehow they just pulled off the historic miracle, beating a floor boss on the very first dive. The soldiers go wild with cheers, shouting that they're the unbeatable NACT and throwing big plans for a massive party the moment they're back. While everyone else cheers, Vim stays rooted in the downpour, shaking hard as an ice-cold dread clamps onto his chest. Sweat drenches his face as he panics, frantically asking himself if this fight is truly done or if there's something crucial he's somehow missed. He just glares into the stormy distance, stuck in silence, wondering if beating the floor boss is really this easy, even while the rain hammers down. He tries to talk himself out of the fear, insisting they crushed the threat before it could move, but deep down he knows it wasn't that simple. That nagging gut feeling won't quit. Sure, they blitzed the wind thanks to the party's speed, but the weird weather still makes no sense, and it's driving him crazy. His thoughts shatter the moment he suddenly sprints off, and a teammate yells his name, totally baffled. Vim halts mid-step and spins around as Abel barrels in, breathless from that sudden lurch. Abel fires off a warning. Don't you dare point it out, because this insane downpour is making the water level rocket up faster than it should. Abel spots Vim locked in tight on that map, and he can't help but ask, with real worry in his voice, what's going on. Vim snaps it all together, muttering to himself, the floor boss showed up. And right as the rain starts, they're hit with an attack exactly on the timing. Breathless, he blurts out whether a floor boss can usually bend the elements, whether they can summon rain on demand. When he finally clocked what it meant, he slammed his comms on right away, called the captain, and rushed to tell Camilla who he was. Vim warns that the water's rising fast and that these semi-aquatic monsters are about to get way more active, way more deadly. He grimly points out that even though the party's speed has been crushed by the flooding, the enemy will probably be charging through even faster. Camilla gets straight to the point, making it crystal clear that his assessment means the crisis isn't even close to over. She shot him an apology for losing control earlier, then praised his razor-sharp intuition and ordered a full retreat on the spot. With a command decision, she declares that living to tell them what happened is all this expedition needs to prove. She fires off the question to Vim, do you have a retreat plan ready? Counting on his navigation skills to guide them out alive. Vim shoots back a confident yes, then jabs his holographic map there, a tight passage to the northwest. He says it's a brutal detour that'll cost them time, but it's the only way they can sneak around the flooding. Even with the plan in place, Vim's hands won't stop shaking, and it freaks him out. Why is his body reacting with that gut-punch terror? In the pouring rain, the squad huddles tight. Cheering turns to grim silence as victory snaps into a brutal retreat. A weird, crushing boom suddenly ripped through the cavern, and every soldier stopped cold, clenching their weapons tight. The knights spun around in total confusion, trying to track down where that ominous sound was coming from as the rain hammered down. Bubbles roil up from the water like smoke signals, and the soldier's breath catches as huge shapes surge up from the deep. A gigantic, grotesque blob of flesh and writhing tentacles bursts through the surface, looming over the terrified adventurers like a living nightmare. The creature finally snaps into its full, horrifying form, slime oozing off its body as it glares down at the tiny humans like they're already doomed. In that razor-thin moment, every member of the party locks eyes on the terrifying truth of where they stand. Their hope collapses as they realize the monster they just crushed was only a pawn and the real floor boss is still waiting. Massive splashes explode in every direction as even more shapes crawl out, trapping the whole group on every side. The party gets boxed in by a swarm of giant worm-like monsters, each one basically as huge as the boss, and they're struggling to survive, something they barely even managed to kill last time. A soldier freezes in disbelief, stuttering that the monster from earlier was nothing just some plain, run-of-the-mill mob enemy. Camilla's sweat pours as nerves hit, but she clenches her resolve and admits it. Conquering the 98th floor is going to be brutally tough after all. The cavern floor turns to a nightmare of despair as towering, tentacled monstrosities burst up from the water and clamp around the small band of adventurers. A stunned adventurer sputters in disbelief, frozen as the horrifying size of the threat crashes into their mind. Panic crashes in as they stammer, begging in desperation for what on earth they're supposed to do against odds like this. A scout yells that the rain is so brutal he can't even count the enemy anymore. His eyes are too blinded to see straight. Realizing the storm is the boss's power made, they shout and scramble to get their message through the deafening roar of the rain. A frantic report bursts in from the west flank, and it confirms it 2 enormous mobs are charging in, closing the distance fast. Right away, the east side jumps in with a terrifying confirmation. 2 more giants are coming from that direction too. Tara's on edge as the south guard yells that he's confirmed 5 more enemies are closing in on their position. Bettina screams from the north side that everything's gone to hell, they're totally surrounded, and she's desperately begging for someone to give her orders. A terrified soldier starts hyperventilating, sobbing that everything is going to fall apart, and screaming at everyone to run for their lives. Smashing through the chaos, Camilla locks onto the horizon with ice-cold calm and barks orders for everyone to rush into a defensive formation right now. Her unshakable stance jolts the panicked soldiers back to their senses, forcing their eyes up to their captain. Camilla roars at them to move, build the defensive circle now, before the enemy slams in and closes the gap. She tells herself this is what leadership costs. She clamps down on her composure and won't crack, even when everything looks hopeless. The soldiers snap to it at once, slamming their shields together to forge a locked wall of steel, standing firm against the towering monsters bearing down on them. Massive tentacles crash down, and the shield-bearers lock in tight faces, drenched in sweat as they refuse to break, holding the line against the giants. Inside the formation, the soldiers huddle up and whisper with trembling dread, panicking over whether they're about to fight, since the path is cut off and retreat might as well be impossible. Doubt slams into them as they wonder can even some knacked libel break through a floor boss while multiple mobs swarm at the same time. Vim trembles, sweat slicking his face, racing through desperate numbers. Can they slip away before they're chased, and if not, how long they can keep fighting? Suddenly, a heavy hand slams into his back, yanking him out of his spiral as his teammate yells his name. His comrade snaps at him, barking, "Don't you dare look down," because that gloomy face, it absolutely doesn't fit him. Vim whips his gaze around and sees his teammates clenching their weapons with burning resolve, like they're about to charge straight into the impossible. When the tank leader flashed that confident grin, Vim froze in shock because he suddenly realized he was the only one freaking out. Ashamed, yet fueled by inspiration, Vim slaps his own cheeks and steels himself. Then he answers the call with a loud, unshakable yes. He tells himself, sure, there's no promise we win, but we're not doomed yet, either. Relieved they hadn't lost anyone yet, he feels their remaining strength and knows they can still fight. Vim snatches his resolve back from the shadows, vows to read every move in front of them, and swears no matter what that they'll all crawl out of this hell alive. He locks in hard on what he can do in this moment, ready to nail his role with absolute perfection. The massive worms jerk backward, their grotesque bodies rippling as they huddle up to unleash a brutal barrage of attacks. Camilla shrieks for everyone to fight back as the forest of tentacles slams down on them like a living nightmare. Vim snaps into action, barks the enchanted incantation, and hurls support magic in a surge to slam his defenses to the max. The shield-bearers bellow in acknowledgement, teeth clenched tight as they brace for the crushing blow. A savage storm of tentacles slams out of the sky, battering the small defensive circle like a hammer. A soldier stares as the shadows creep in, stammering that the sheer avalanche of attacks is crushing him. Camilla bares her teeth, flashes a ferocious grin, and screams a warning as those massive limbs slam into place. The front line buckles under the enemy's thunderous hit, shields groaning like they're about to snap, but they refuse to break. The impact slams the earth like a drum, and Vim drops into a tight crouch, gripping his weapon hard as the whole world bucks and rattles around him. While the battlefield erupts, Vim yanks out his dagger, eyes blazing, and locks in on a brand new plan. A sharp command cuts the air. Hold on, keep enduring, as the soldiers roar and strain with all they've got to keep that defensive wall standing. The leader shouts for everyone to hold on tight, because every single life hinges on keeping that formation. Camilla's voice slices through the despair, blasting out as she screams for everyone to lift their heads, grab their courage, and strike back. The legendary party, Isekai'D, is standing right at the edge of total destruction. The brutal truth hits hard. This squad is already battered and partially wiped out by sheer overwhelming power. Knights and mages, battered and broken, churn in the floodwater, clawing to rise as the relentless onslaught keeps smashing them down. A monstrous nightmare towers over them, swallowing the survivors in a shadow of pure, absolute doom. Terrified defenders shoot up their shields and grip their staves tight, shaking as they desperately fight to keep the beast from breaking through. A flashback cuts in, and you realize they'd already braced for the worst, convinced they could handle anything that came their way. Their training and raw power were meant to be more than enough to bulldoze through anything that Dungeon dared to throw at them. But the labyrinth's true irrationality shattered every plan they'd made, like nothing mattered at all. The brutal truth hits hard. If your party stumbles onto this floor boss first, you're basically doomed to get wiped out. In a flash of memory, Camilla locks eyes with Vim, her face deadly serious as she shouts his name through the pounding rain. She snaps that he isn't part of Isekai'D yet, and says nobody would fault him for slipping away alone. Vim freezes in shock when she stops him and demands one last favor before he walks out the door. Shaken to the core by what it means, Vim blurts out an apology, stammers through it, and flat out refuses to go along with what she's implying. Camilla hammers home that her desperate plan hinges on one thing: his cooperation and the cold acceptance that casualties are unavoidable. She storms in, vows she'll take the monster down herself, and demands he hand over every last bit of enhancement he's got. Her orders are law. No one argues. Everyone else has to pair up in squads of 3 and scatter fast, with zero support for her. Vim finally gets it. She's about to throw her own life away, and she panics, begging, "Please tell everyone the escape route at least." Camilla forces a shaky smile and admits it. She'll take full responsibility for keeping Isekai'D safe. Vin pleads with her to quit that talk, because he can't stomach the crushing weight of her self-sacrifice. She tells him that if he joins the guild, Hyde, Mary, and Abel will lock in his secure future. Then Vim just absolutely crumbles. Tears spilling down her face, Camilla formally calls the contract one last time, greenlighting Vim's enchantment for the final time. Vim gritted his teeth, tears blasting down his face as he fought tooth and nail to choke down the raw agony crushing his heart. Screaming through the pain, he triggers the enchanted spell and dumps all his magic straight into his captain. A blinding pillar of light explodes around Camilla the second she calls out, demanding every member's attention. With chilling calm, she declares these will be her last words to the team. She barks for them to flee while she clings to the bus, then drops the bombshell she's already put their lives in Vim's hands. With a soft smile, she turns to her comrades and thanks them for everything they fought for side by side. Right now, a soldier finally gets it too late, and she blares a scream of pure denial as she steps forward. Camilla stands alone in the dark, and her communication dies with a brutal burst of static. She stares in awe at that wild new feeling, like someone just yanked a massive weight off her shoulders and left her floating. Her eyes fly open with razor-sharp focus, zeroing in on the massive target like a hunter. The colossal worm surges up from the depths, its mouths and tentacles thrashing with pure, hungry anticipation of the kill. Camilla steps up to the beast, swears it's the one in charge of this floor, and then fires back, "I'm Camilla." She snaps into a ferocious glare and swears respectfully. Of course that she'll take its life right here, right now. She rockets ahead, slicing through the water at breakneck speed as she swallows the distance in the blink of an eye. A brutal shockwave explodes as she carves through the monster's defenses with terrifying, world-crushing force. The blast ripped through the cavern, and the mighty beast froze, stunned by the tiny warrior's devastating strike. Camilla surges through those giant tentacles, slicing them apart as blood erupts into the air and severed limbs scatter everywhere. She rockets forward at blistering speed, taunting the beast as she dares it like, is it finally time for her to make her big move? Magical power ripples through her as she clings to a vertical tentacle, then declares loud and certain that this upgrade is top tier. Her eyes burn with fierce focus as she hacks through the monster's defenses with her blade. A monstrous tentacle gets cut clean through, and the heavy limb rockets off into the darkness like a missile. She rockets across the battlefield so fast her teammates can barely keep up with where she's flashing next. Camilla realizes she can climb forever without a single drop of fatigue, and she's stunned at how effortless her body feels. She fires questions at her past self, digging for the truth like, are you really the same person who used to be dull and just numb with apathy? As she lands another blow, doubt claws at her. Was this powerhouse warrior really who she's become? Her blade bites down and rips deep into the monster's huge eye. A wild grin flashes across her face the moment she realizes she can take this boss on fair and equal. She sprints the creature's length, hell-bent on hacking every tentacle off and driving her blade straight into its core. Grit and pure resolve blaze across her face as she screams for even more speed and raw power. Even with her ridiculous power growth, she's left staring because the monster just won't fold or fall. Vim stares in awe, comparing Camilla's full force power to the legendary clash of a mythical hero. He claws his resolve back together, clinging to her orders, and stakes everything on the time she's bought them. Hunched over his device, he readies the retreat assistance so the rest of the party can slip away. He slams the retreat protocol into motion, his hand twitching over the controls. Vim helps a battered comrade, and the moment he gets a grip, the guy sputters thanks as they limp off the battlefield together. Hyde-Marie clocks him coming and blurts his name with pure relief. She stands right in front of him and drops the truth she never stopped believing in him. Not even for a second. Vim panted hard, sweat pouring off his face as he checked the area and breathed out safe. For now, he comes back with the bleak update on the second recon team. Hans is safe, but the rest are fighting to hold on. With a sharp nod, he whips around to go, and he pushes Hyde-Marie to get out now. Hyde-Marie freezes in confusion, staring as Vim's footsteps drag along way too unnaturally. Vim's breath turns ragged, his mouth hangs open, and exhaustion crashes over him. He stares in shock as his body suddenly turns leaden, realizing he's in serious trouble right now. It doesn't feel like simple tiredness anymore. His legs turn to dead weight, and they won't lift no matter how he tries. A terrifying realization crashes into him as he finally nails exactly what this sensation is. A vicious ghost of his abusive old leader haunts his head, whispering, "You're not useful," and it drives him out of his mind. His eyes blow wide with pure horror as he realizes that sick, familiar pain straight from his time inside Dragon's Wing. He wrestles the panic down, gripping his thoughts as he demands, "Why am I thinking about this right now, when there's not a second to breathe?" Hyde-Marie shrieks his name in pure panic as his footing crumbles and he starts to drop fast. A memory of Camilla hits him like lightning, warning that running away doesn't mean he'll be safe. Her bright smile lights a fire in him, and he decides to give it everything he's got. He vividly remembers her praise, and the moment she told him his improvement was magnificent hits him all over again. He can't stop staring at the memories crashing back out of nowhere, trapped under the weight of her kindness. The images hit him all at once, her offering food, slipping him money, showering him with praise, each one screaming how much she truly cared. Her voice slices through the haze, snapping him to focus, then demanding he do exactly as she says. A countdown slams into his skull, screaming at him to stop thinking and launch the moment the timer hits 1. A chilling voice pounds through Vim's head, screaming for him to obey Camilla's orders and to make his feet move forward no matter what. The voice ramps up, hurls insults at him, and screams for him to look up because standing there frozen like an idiot isn't an option. Vim freezes in the pouring rain, trembling hard as the ghosts of his past trauma crash over him like a nightmare. His voice sneers at his fear, mocking the pathetic way he looks right this second. It drags his icy smirk through the mud, even worse than the face he flashed right before he embarrassed himself in front of the trash leader, Kronos. The hallucination won't let up, drilling into his thoughts, demanding to know every single thing he's thinking, while he just stands there, useless. Hyde's voice suddenly slices through the dark, and he yells at Mary to stop bolting and finally think things through. She demands to know exactly what he's thinking, and it drags him into the hard truth he's been dodging his own hesitation. Right when it matters most, a fierce voice calls him out saying he can't trust his comrades. Vim just stands there, eyes blown wide, staring straight into the pouring rain, utterly frozen by the storm of fear inside him. A massive worm monster rises with a hideous lurch, gearing up to crush the tiny humans under its crushing weight. Camilla throws herself straight at the beast, and with one blazing slash, her sword cuts a towering tentacle clean off. Vim snaps back to the team's rallying cry, convinced that as long as their captain drives them forward, the impossible is finally within reach. The soldiers bellow in perfect unison, swearing nobody's giving up while their morale rockets sky high, even as the odds crush them. Camilla hammers the monster non-stop, her blade slicing through its flesh with brutal, unshakable precision. She whirls through the air, slipping every strike, then carving deep slices straight into the creature's tough hide. A soldier yells that the enemy's assault has finally died down, and in that brief opening, he knows they can hit back. He blasts out a scream, urging everyone to grab the moment right now, calling it the perfect chance to flip the whole fight. A brutal blast detonates in the battlefield, and a massive shockwave tears everything apart. A warrior bellows with pure resolve, shoving every last ounce of power into one final desperate strike. The monster snaps back with a brutal technique, human hunt slamming into the attackers and wiping them all out. A chilling voice murmurs, "Good," as the trap snaps shut. Camilla's eyes snap wide with terror. She realizes a split second too late she has to dodge that incoming hit. A colossal limb crashes into her, splintering her armor and blasting blood into the sky. The blast slams into the water, blasting out a rippling shockwave that hurls everything out of its way. Vim rips through the air, screaming his captain's name in total terror as he watches her get struck down. Camilla gets hurled through the air like a rag doll, utterly powerless as that crushing blow slams down on her. Abel spots the threat and charges ahead, roaring like a beast as he throws himself straight into the line of fire. He snaps his shield up at the last second, bracing like a wall as the catastrophic impact barrels in to crush them all. Vim launches himself through the water, racing to catch Camilla as she plunges, and he sweeps her into his arms before she hits the surface. He snaps his head up in full panic, yelling her name over and over as that monster's shadow swallows them both. Camilla wheezes for breath, red spilling from her mouth as she praises Abel's reflect skill. Abel grunts through the crushing pressure, but he refuses to break. He vows to keep the defense standing no matter what. Vim frantically storms over to his captain, yelling, "Can you hear me?" as chaos rages around them. His investigation lands a brutal truth. Her organs are wrecked, and her bones are shattered from head to toe. Camilla barely lifts her eyes, her voice trembling as she demands, "Who's still standing out there on the battlefield?" She bursts into despair. Escape is impossible, and the whole party is still trapped there with her. A look of surrender snaps across her face as she whispers, "I see," and fully accepts just how brutal their situation really is. She lets out a gentle laugh, points out that somehow nobody's died yet, and calls them sweetly, foolishly young. With her last ounce of strength, she screams for the young and strong to bolt, leaving the heavy, wounded burdens of her behind. Vim slumps behind his fallen captain, frozen in shock, mumbling under his breath until it finally hits him. This is real, and their situation is desperate. He locks eyes on Camilla on her knees, stunned to see the strongest warrior he knows shattered into defeat. Vim refuses to run. She keeps her reinforcement magic, so he's telling her he'll be her meat shield while she fights. Grit and desperation choke his voice as he balls his fist tight, swearing no matter what, he can't quit yet. Camilla lifts her eyes with a fragile little smile, nods like it's all official business, and pleads with Vim to give her his reinforcement one last time. Vim's face twists in raw emotion, sweat and rain pour off his chin as he clenches his teeth and drags himself past pure terror. With a gut-wrenching dose of self-loathing, he realizes his hesitation and doubt are clawing away the tiny, precious seconds Camilla has left. A terrifying vision clamps down on him, screaming that if they don't act right now, the whole group is going to get wiped out here and now. The party's warmth crashes through his mind again and again, and it only hammers home one brutal truth: he feels even more unworthy of the kindness they poured onto a misfit like him. Tears brim in his eyes as he shakes, hit with this crushing thought that he has no business being in a party this good. He fires off a mental hit list of his own flaws, convinced he's awkward to the bone, painfully miserable, and an outcast who should have been tossed aside ages ago. He admits that this whole time, it's always the Febron members together, unbreakable, who've been shielding him with their sheer strength. That crushing debt to them pins him to the ground, and no matter how many times he dies, it still won't feel like it can wash away the worthlessness he believes he's got. Staring at his trembling hand, he can't believe it. These amazing people actually took him in, judged him not for his flaws, and treated him with real respect. Vim rips open a channel to the whole team and with sudden clarity declares the terrifying truth: there's still one last shot at surviving. The surviving crew just stands there in the pouring rain, stunned and lost, because their support mage suddenly drops a grave, no-joke declaration. Vim floods the room with apologies, his voice trembling yet steel strong, and then he declares he's going to straight up ignore the orders. His teammates stare in stunned silence, utterly baffled by what the timid enchanter could be cooking up. Vim straight up admits the road he's about to take probably isn't the smartest strategy in the whole toolbox. He insists this is his only remaining option, and that leaves him with zero choice, so he has to act. He snaps orders to the rest of the party, grab the opening, and fall back right now while he stays behind, hell-bent on holding the boss in place. Vim slams the activation for a deadly spell called Hurts, and the stalemate protocol locks the whole battlefield in a sudden, heart-stopping freeze. As that magical energy swirls around him, he snaps out an explanation to the totally lost team he's about to unleash a specific debuff. He zeroes in on the Lord of the Levels and flat out announces his wild plan to take down the floor boss all by himself. Camilla looks up at him, stunned, and finally realizes she was right. There was always something special lurking inside him. Vim jabs a finger at the enemy, stunned, because why would he pull a move like that when he usually can't stand recklessness? He clings to Camilla's words about freedom, living his own way, and it finally clicks, fully, like he's just unlocked the real meaning of her advice. A real confident grin erupts across his face as he fully embraces his choice and the freedom that comes rushing in with it. With a wild, dramatic flourish, Vim unleashes his ultimate technique, activating Transition Puppet Master, and kicks off his solo war.